On. First, a new virtual running club is gaining thousands of new members and fast, even if
Some residents think it's making driving a nightmare. Others argue that drivers are already making biking a nightmare. And then there's jaywalking in Somerville. Which lane are you in? Who are the roads for? We'll open phone and text lines at 877-301-8970. All that ahead on Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Korva Coleman. The Kremlin is denying claims that Russian forces were responsible for the breach of a dam in southern Ukraine. The head of the UN's nuclear watchdog agency warns the breach could end up being catastrophic for the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. It relies on water from a reservoir to cool the reactors at Europe's largest nuclear facility. The BBC's James Waterhouse reports.
The Kakhovka Dam sits on a southern part of the Dnipro River and is under the control of Russian forces. Reports on Russian state media suggest it was damaged by shelling. Unverified footage suggests it's at least been breached and caused major flooding. This would have implications for settlements further south, like the city of Kherson, as well as the Russian-controlled Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant to the east. Its 6 reactors rely on the river's water for its cooling system. The Moscow-installed mayor in the area claimed the incident would also cause water supply problems for the occupied Crimean Peninsula. Kiev blames Russia for the attack and has accused the invading forces of ecocide.
The BBC's James Waterhouse reporting. Hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians are being told to evacuate because of potential flooding. The breach is being condemned by NATO's Secretary General, as well as top officials in many Western governments. Secretary of State Antony Blinken heads to Saudi Arabia today. NPR's Giles Snyder says Blinken wants to bolster relations between the U.S. and the kingdom, as well as Israel's relations with the Saudis.
A day before leaving for Riyadh, Blinken told AIPAC, the American-Israel Public Affairs Committee, that the U.S. has a real national security interest in promoting normalization between Israel and Saudi Arabia. But he acknowledged that working out a deal like the ones the Trump administration secured with other Arab states, including the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, and Morocco, won't come quickly or easily.
NPR's Giles Snyder reporting. Another crypto company is being targeted by U.S. regulators. The Securities and Exchange Commission has filed suit against Coinbase. As NPR's David Gura reports, it's part of a barrage of enforcement actions against the crypto industry since FTX collapsed late last year.
The Securities and Exchange Commission has been asking crypto companies to register with it, and the SEC says Coinbase has not, as an exchange, broker-dealer, and clearing agency. The SEC has filed charges against Coinbase in U.S. District Court for the Southern District of New York. In a statement, SEC Chair Gary Gensler says because the company has not registered, investors and customers are at risk. Coinbase's alleged failures deprive investors of critical protections, he says. The suit against Coinbase comes one day after the SEC filed a major lawsuit against Binance, which runs the world's largest crypto exchange. The SEC says it also hasn't complied with regulations. David Gura, NPR News, New York.
Stocks are higher on Wall Street. The Dow is up 53 points. The Nasdaq is up nearly 40 points. You're listening to NPR News.
Good morning. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Canadian smoke is back, and it's bringing air quality alerts across the region through this evening. Meteorologist Christy Smith is with National Weather Service Boston. She says the smoky air is unhealthy for some sensitive groups of people.
So those that have asthma or chronic allergies, they may feel particularly sensitive to the smoke moving into the area today, and it's recommended that they don't spend a prolonged period of time outside if they begin to feel the impacts from the wildfire smoke around.
This time, the smoke is from more than 100 wildfires burning in Quebec and Ontario, as officials say Canada is on track towards the worst fire season ever. A member of the Mashpee Wampanoag tribe has won the national cooking recognition for her achievements in cooking. Sherry Pocknett won Best Chef in the Northeast at the James Beard Awards last night. Rhode Island Monthly reports that it's the first time an Indigenous woman has won a James Beard Award, which are referred to as the Oscars of the food world. Pocknett owns Sly Fox Den 2 in Rhode Island, which features a Native American fusion menu. In sports, Red Sox kick off a week-long road trip tonight in Cleveland, opening a series with the Guardians. And in the forecast, a little bit of everything on tap today. Some clouds, some sun, some rain, and a great band called Guster blows into the Boston Public Library this afternoon to perform on Boston Public Radio with Jim and Marjorie. High today, 75 degrees. Light clouds overnight tonight, low 52. It's 68 degrees outside our studios here in Brighton right now.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Workday, an enterprise management cloud focused on providing organizations with a system to continuously plan for all what-if scenarios. Workday, the finance, HR, and planning system for a changing world.
I'm Henry Santoro. This is GBH News.
I am Marjorie Egan. You are listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library, as we do every Tuesday and every Friday, and we are streaming online at facebook.com/GBH News and youtube.com/GBH News. Hello, Jim.
Hey there, Marjorie.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'll applaud for myself.
Actually,
here.
I think they were applauding for YouTube.com.
Oh, YouTube.com, okay.
You know, did you just hear what Henry said? Henry Santoro said?
I don't know what he said.
That Guster will be performing
Guster.
at the library with Jim and Marjorie.
That's right.
I want to be clear.
We're going to sing a duet,
They are
Jim.
not performing with Jim and Marjorie.
We're going to sing our theme song.
By the way, they are fabulous, and they're going to be here in the 1 o'clock hour. I would be here, too, if I were you. We're joined now on Zoom by Trenni Casey, anchor reporter for NBC Sports Boston and a BPR contributor. Hey there, Trenni.
Ooh, busy day.
Busy day.
Busy day. Yeah, we're very excited about Guster.
Cap out Tuesday. Cap out Tuesday is what I'm calling it in sports. And I'm bummed about Guster. Like, I loved them when I was in my teenage college years.
Well, show up. You have 2.5 hours.
I can't. I have a board meeting. That's why I'm on Zoom today.
Oh, no.
Call in sick.
No.
I
well,
mean,
listen.
come on. Go ahead.
So I'm not a golf expert here, but I am pretty upset about the PGA Tour merging with Live Golf, the Saudi Arabian backed golf thing that, with the terrible human rights violations in Saudi Arabia. I mean, what's going on?
I don't understand why they're doing this. Was a shocking. So our news director sent it to us this morning, like an hour or so ago, right before Jamie sent it to me, your producer, and I was shocked to see it. The only thing I can think of, guys, and to me, it is such a weak position for, and just, I think it's, like I said, it's a cop-out Tuesday. We're going to get to another story about Harvard. I think it's just a cop-out what happened with the Harvard women's hockey team. You have Brooks Koepka, who wins the PGA championship. You have Brooks Koepka, and now I'm forgetting, there was one other golfer who was in it at the end with the Masters. So some of these live golfers that everyone had sort of written off, that they'd only gone to that league because they wanted money and they were at the end of their careers, have started to have some success in the major PGA Tour events that they are still allowed to participate in. And to me, that's what sparked this. That's not being reported. That's just my personal opinion, that they're saying, hold on a second, there's still really good golfers in that league and we are losing out to them. So if you can't beat them, join them. This is why I hate it, because other ventures by the Saudi government, particularly those in sports and entertainment, have often fizzled. They have run out of money. They have overpaid guys. And some of your biggest stars, and I know Tiger Woods is at the back, no pun intended, back nine of his career, Rory McIlroy, Justin Thomas, Jordan Spieth, those guys, Scotty Scheffler, none of those guys left. You still have those guys on the PGA Tour. And so now you're merging with a league that you don't even know, one, wasn't challenging you in television ratings. No one even knew where to find them. And two, you had no idea if they were going to have long-term success and if those guys wouldn't come crawling back to you at some point. So I just find this to be a weak position and giving in purely out of fear of losing eyeballs.
Well, it seems to me the big issue, which I guess is implied in what you're saying, is so many of the golfers that stay with the PGA, including Tiger Woods turning down almost $1 billion from the Saudis, were saying, we're not going to play for people who murdered a journalist, Khashoggi, who oppress women, who are serious human rights violators, and all of a sudden, that goes up in smoke
they
and
jail
everything's
artists,
okay?
writers, government dissidents in jail. I mean, he's pretty bad.
I'm sure you saw this in the article as well. I mean, it was the Saudis who were directly tied to 9/11. And at every one of these live golf tournaments, there are surviving families who protest outside of these because that is the country, that killed their loved ones in a terrorist attack. And listen, I'm not naive. I understand that in government, in business, like we do shady deals all the time. You kind of look the other way. I would say, if we're being honest, and we talk about human rights violations, look at Florida, look at Texas, look at what they're doing to the LGBTQ plus community right now, what they're doing to diversity initiatives. And we still have to, but they're in our actual country. So we have to find a way to coexist. To me, by joining forces with Live Golf and the Saudis, you are co-signing what they're doing and saying, we don't like it, but we're not going to stop you from doing it.
Well, it's all about money. I mean, it's the only thing they give a damn
all about money.
Well, the other thing I wonder about, if you turn into a PGA golf tournament on a Sunday afternoon, everybody's very hushed and they're whispering, and so-and-so is taking his tee shot. There's not a lot of music, a lot of fanfare. The live golf things, I understand, are very, very different from that. So what is that going to mean to the regular hushed Sunday afternoon PGA broadcasts?
That's a great question, Marjorie. This still does need to be approved by the PGA Board of Directors or something, but I can't imagine that the PGA and the Live Golf Tour would announce this if they didn't have an idea. I mean, again, you guys, we all watch Succession, right? You're probably not going to go through with something unless you have the votes on the board to push your measure through. So unless something happens where somebody has a change of heart midway through, this should get pushed through. What the article, and I know it's just sort of off. This was breaking only about an hour, 45 minutes ago, maybe not even. So there's still, I think, the details to be hammered out. But I am curious. They play a different style of golf. It's fewer holes. It's 3 days of golf instead of 4.
Who cares? Who cares?
It's sort of like
these guys are frauds.
Like a team.
That's all that matters. They're frauds.
I know.
But I'm talking about
the
difference in the broadcast.
When they actually merge. When they merge, Jim, are we going to see a difference in the product?
Yes.
Is that also an issue? Are they trying to so desperately attract younger viewers to golf? And a younger audience that they are willing to, one of the most popular PGA Tour events is the Waste Management Open in Phoenix. The
Waste Management Open in Phoenix?
Well, I mean, everything is sponsored, Marjorie. Everything is sponsored. So, I think of the WM, right?
Yeah, okay.
But it's as close as you get on the PGA Tour to an event that is similar to a Live Golf Tour, right? Like, I think it's the 15th or the 16th hole. It's like a wild party. Like, it is not like other golf. It is like a frat party. And so I wonder, I don't know, are they going to try to skew more towards that? Will there be some traditionalists?
I don't care.
But you care.
I mean, it all
if you're a PGA fan.
Well,
because
fine.
That's part of its
You know what they're
appeal.
going to do? The Live members are going to imprison people during the 18 holes. They're going to tie them up and handcuff them. Can we move on from this? I don't want to give it any more play. It's disgraceful. They should be ashamed of themselves.
It's disgraceful.
It's all about the bottom line. We were going to talk about this later, but since you mentioned it about Cop Out Tuesday, we talked a lot about the allegations in a great piece. What was it, Bob Holler, who wrote it for the Boston Globe months ago, about the abuse rained on many of her players by the long-term Harvard hockey coach, Katie Stone. And she is finally, we read today, quote, retiring, which I think is probably not exactly the right verb. Can you give a little bit of the backstory, how we got here, Trenni?
So she was accused last year, I believe it was late last year, of making racially insensitive comments in front of Indigenous members of the team. She was also accused of not demoralizing players, telling them they shouldn't be seeking mental health support, insensitivity to mental health issues, pressuring players to return from injury, body shaming, adversely influencing academics, hazing incidents. So a lot of the same things that we see in sports, if I'm being quite honest, I think more often in men's sports than in women's sports, but this was happening at Harvard. Some of those Indigenous players, what she uttered, the racially insensitive comment that she uttered, she was talking to the team and she said they were playing as if there were, quote, too many Chiefs and not enough Indians. This caused an Indigenous coach to quit the team. The 2 players left the team. who was also an assistant coach, a former captain. And so, but it was like two sides to the story. There were some of her former players, Katie Stone's former players, who said that she shaped them into these wonderful women and they wouldn't have had the success they had without her. But there was also another loud, very vocal, large group that said this was someone who made them feel terrible when they were playing hockey and felt as if it was an unfair hierarchy. And that if you went along, if you went along to go along, she let things slide, but other people, anyone who would push back or try to maybe get help with homework or go see a therapist or put on a couple of pounds was shamed in front of the team. And so Harvard launched an investigation in March. To the best of my knowledge, as I'm just sort of re-skimming over this, it was an independent review of the program in March, but it doesn't seem like there has been a conclusion to that independent review. Or at least
publicly, there hasn't been a conclusion.
At least publicly. Yeah. But today, she, in a statement issued by Harvard, and you said, maybe it's not the right verb to retire, which you may be right. I think she's actually resigning. But the fact of the matter is, Jim, and why I'm calling this Cop Out Tuesday, is Harvard is allowing her to retire.
Yeah,
they aren't. Yeah. I don't like it.
Well,
to me, you are resigning. You are not.
I don't think she's either. Respectfully, I don't think it's a retirement or resigning. Pressure.
She's Harvard, being forced out.
I think she's being forced. I don't know this. I hope she's being forced out. Harvard, I think, showed itself to be cowardly in the face of this. Is not just one or two complaints. There were 14 recruited players who left the hockey program in the last 6 years. 14 is huge, including 3 this year. Harvard, I'm assuming and hoping, board members and other people with power said you're disgracing yourself by standing by this woman. And then finally, I assume they cut a deal saying that she could, quote, retire. I think the real embarrassment here is Harvard's tolerating this woman abusing her players. I mean, it's just horrible.
And the final paragraph in this article in the Globe, which talks about this, is a statement from Aaron McDermott, who is the athletic director. And it says, "We recognize the decades of service and commitment that Katie has given to this university and athletic department. We thank her for all she has done to build the women's hockey program here, and we wish her the best in her future endeavors." To me, that's complicit. Because now you aren't calling, and maybe when the independent report is made public, they will then come out. But you know what? Just don't say anything. Let her if you want to let her in legally, you're the lawyer, not me, Jim. Maybe they have to, maybe they came to some sort of settlement and agreement, but you do not have to put out this statement and basically say, well, yeah, you did some bad things, but look what you did for our program and the money it brings in and the athletes it brings into our school. Like this is where I always have an issue with what happens in college athletics and in pro athletics too. At times that at least those players are getting paid, a ton of money to be out there. They don't care. She brought in money. She brought in prestige. She built up their program. So it doesn't matter that you humiliated women for years in this program and forcing them to leave, probably causing them mental distress. But hey, thank you so much for your service.
Well, I
just think it's awful what Harvard did.
I think
just
you nailed it.
Say nothing.
My assumption is the lawyers for Katie Stone drafted the statement that was read or written or issued by the athletic director, but I have to say, I hope people have long memories and realize that at least the athletic department, if not the leadership of the school in toto, allowed this credibly accused abuser of her athletes to continue despite the courage of the young women to say publicly what was happening.
And keep an eye on her name, and let's see if she ends up somewhere else.
That's a very good point.
Because how many times do we see these abusers go somewhere else? Now, it'll be a smaller program, but that doesn't have any less impact on the lives she is dealing with day in and day out.
We're talking with Trenni Casey. She is an anchor and reporter for NBC Sports Boston. So this is a great story. This is about a guy with a lifelong weight problem who was running the New York City Marathon when somebody called him a fat guy from the crowd. And then...
What a jerk.
What happened?
He used it as motivation, and he decided, you know what? And he said he was running too slow, that he'd never finish. And it did. It took him over 6 hours to finish. I think 7 hours to finish the New York City Marathon. But rather than getting angry or feeling bad about himself, like he's tried all these things. Like, listen, this guy, he may have been overweight, but that doesn't always mean you're unhealthy, right? Like, there are different levels of it. This man was healthy enough to run a marathon and continue running. So he started the Slow AF which if you are of a certain age, you know what that means. I can't say it on public radio. Run club, which encourages people of all body types, most importantly, all different levels of running to enjoy it and to participate. And this is my biggest frustration, I think, with running, is it has become so competitive, and with social media and apps like Strava, where you can share all your stats, there is so much emphasis now on time. There's so much emphasis on how fast can you run, how far can you run, how much can you push yourself. And let's be honest, not everybody is built to run a sub 3-hour marathon or a sub 4-hour marathon, right? Like,
very few
that's
of
just
us.
not what happens. Right. So Martinius Evans is like, you know what? I want everybody to run. And like, I love this picture. I don't know where it is. I think it might be on the Hudson Riverside, the Riverside Highway sort of portion of New York City.
Yep.
He is smiling, this huge smile. He's got his Slow AF Run Club t-shirt on. And now this thing has gone, it started in New York and now it's gone nationwide. Yeah. And it also, I think it's important to point out, for those of you who haven't seen the story, he is a man of color. He's a Black man. So he's also really working to make running more inclusive.
Yep.
I mean, running, especially at distance running, is still, I would say, a predominantly, except for at the elite level, a predominantly male sport. Predominantly white sport, not male, predominantly white sport. And it doesn't need to be. So I think there are a lot of people, like we have Pioneers Run Club in Boston. I know we've talked about them on this show before. We have this gentleman. We have people who are trying to break down barriers and make running safe and inclusive. Because I also think that, for some runners of color, you may not feel safe running. I mean, you are seen as a threat. It can be, but if you're in a group and you have people to go together with, I think there really is safety in numbers. And I love that he's sort of hitting all of these different things. I just love his smile. Like that picture of him in the New York Times is like so infectious. They're so great.
By the way, the name of this thing, when the guy yelled at him, you're fat or whatever, what I took away from the story is he says, the guy who screamed at him said, you're fat AF. Yeah, and that's where the name of Slow AF
Yeah, he said, actually,
from.
I misquoted the guy. He didn't say you're fat. He said, you're slow, buddy.
Yes.
So that may have been
Well, no, I think he said, didn't he say fat? I thought he did, but in any case, Slow AF is what he did.
I think he also, yes.
By the way, the thing about...
there's 10,000 members of this worldwide, and he calls them like back of the packers.
Wait, we should clarify. By the way, when you said there are very few long-distance runners who are Black, obviously internationally there are a ton of them.
Yes.
It's within our borders where the overwhelming percentage of people who are running marathons are white people.
100%.
But you know what's neat to me about running is that as long as you can put one foot in front of the other, you can run. It's not like you have to have a great skill. And when you see the people in the Boston Marathon,
you only need sneakers and shorts.
And when you see at the end the stragglers in the Boston Marathon coming down Commonwealth Avenue like at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, these are not great athletes, but they're people that practice and manage to run 26 miles, which is a big achievement, right?
They are I always tell people, for the elites, even for the people who are running like BQs, when you're able to run fast, it's don't get me wrong, running a marathon is always difficult. It's always a difficult challenge, but it's not as hard when you're fast. It just isn't. You're in such incredible shape, and it's like you're naturally doing it. It is so much harder to run a marathon in 5, 6, 7. Sorry, I misquoted. This guy ran it in just over 8 hours. I said 7, 8 hours. So he was 6 hours behind the winner. But to me, imagine the mental fortitude. It's just imagine if the Celtics had as much mental fortitude as Mr. Evans and could push through when the going gets tough and not just always take their foot off the gas. Like imagine what we would be talking about.
By the way, you're not the only one who made that point. I think I've mentioned, I know I've mentioned to you, but I think I've mentioned it to Trenni as well. Alberto Salazar, who used to be a world champion, is now disgraced because of how he treated some runners under his tutelage as well. He said when he won the New York City Marathon a century ago, he was asked by a reporter, how impossibly hard is it to run like that for 2+ hours? And he said, and I'm paraphrasing, but it was almost a quote, not nearly as hard as it is to run for 6 hours. And that... it's true. It's really great. We only have a couple minutes, but I think in light of the fact that we've talked about this before, the death of as many as a dozen horses in a short period of time at Churchill Downs, which is the track, obviously in Kentucky, where the Kentucky Derby is held, despite the quote from the CEO of Churchill Downs saying, everything's fine, we haven't found any problems, nothing, but just to be careful. it seems to me yet again, there's a place that was forced to do the responsible thing, and they did something pretty dramatic. They shut down the spring season and transferred it to another track.
Yeah, it's interesting to me that they transferred it to another track, because that clearly means they want to look right at the facilities, but maybe more importantly, just the setup of the track, what's happening to injure these, what could possibly be happening to injure these horses. And I'm curious if there's any change when they move. They're moving to Ellis Park in Henderson, Kentucky, starting June. So I guess they're racing at Churchill Downs until tomorrow, June 7th, and then they're shutting it down and moving the horses over the weekend to this Ellis Park in Henderson, Kentucky to race. So it was interesting to me that they're not just stopping the season, that they're continuing the racing but at a different track. So I guess that means that they're not, that the injuries or whatever's happening to these horses, I guess maybe naively, I assumed it had to do with like what the owners and trainers were giving these horses, rather than track conditions. But maybe track conditions can be that detrimental to a horse. But you would think a place like Churchill Downs would have nearly an immaculate racing track for these horses. So I'm curious to see if just by moving tracks, do we see a complete halt in these horses getting injured to the point of having to be euthanized? Or will this open up something that it's not the track, it's whatever method they are using to train these horses? Because I don't know if we know that quite yet. I know these horses are drug tested and whatnot, but I do wonder if they'll look a little more closely at how these horses are being treated during training. The one thing, and I know I sent you guys this, it was a little disappointing, and I think it just sort of speaks to similar, like taking it full circle back to Live Golf, about how much money and how much just our personal entertainment surpasses everything. There was a story that I sent you guys from a local news station. People were so mad that they were closing down Churchill Downs because they wanted to go and see. They wanted to have the experience there. They didn't care that 12 horses had to be euthanized because something was happening. It was all about, well, I drove all this way. One of the people are from Wisconsin. All the way from Wisconsin. I'm so glad I got to see the horses run on these tracks because they're going to shut it down. It's terrible what they're doing to us. Like, it's just an unbelievably selfish mentality that I think we have morphed into and that we really need to work on as a society.
Shocking, selfish in our society.
Yes.
Trenni, it's great to see you. We miss you in person.
Much.
See you next week.
See you guys
Take
next
care.
week in person.
Be well.
We've been speaking with Trenni Casey, anchor reporter for NBC Sports Boston. Coming up, who are Boston streets made for? Cars, buses, walkers, jaywalkers, bicyclists? Well, there's a big showdown right now in West Roxbury for Boston streets. We're going to talk about that coming up. 877-301-8970 is the number to call or text us. You're listening to Boston Public Radio.
This is what collaborative journalism looks like.
We are listening to you. We want to know from you what stories are important to you that we should be telling. My joke with people is they say, well, what do you want to know about? I said, I want to know about everything so I can decide which things I can pay attention to, because the things I never hear about are the things I know I can't write.
Trusted local news with NPR, GBH 89.7.
Absolutely happy to hear from anybody.
What matters to you.
Funding for our programs comes from you. And National Grid, providing access to electric heat pumps, which offer heating and cooling for businesses of all sizes to help them achieve their sustainability goals. You can learn more about heat pump technology at ngrid.com/future. And Swan Galleries with contemporary art at auction June 8th, featuring works from the collection of Norman Dolph and spanning abstract expressionism through 21st century art. Catalog and bidding at swangalleries.com and on the Swan app.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy, Marjorie, we're live at the Boston Public Library, streaming online at youtube.com/GBH News and facebook.com/GBH News. If we're to be honest, Marjorie, I think based on the text, and no one gives a damn that we're here. Everybody gives a damn that Guster's here.
Guster's here.
They're not going to be here till like 1:30, but you are welcome earlier. They'll be performing here live at 1:30 ahead of two shows with the Boston Pops tonight and tomorrow.
Yeah, I've gotten several text messages about
Well,
Guster.
I got a lot more than several. We're talking about Boston streets for the next 30 minutes and who they belong to. City has been on a tear putting up bike lanes to encourage less car traffic. It's been a war removing parking spaces and lanes for drivers to protect cyclists. Are you ready to share the roads? And while we're at it, should jaywalking fines be a thing of the past, as a particular state rep wants them to be? Should we just say that jaywalking is okay, do it to your heart's content, as they have just done, by the way, in California by legislation? Or do we just get bold, considering the threat of climate change, and just shut it all down and go all Leipzig, which is that city in Germany the Globe wrote about, shut down much of our downtown to vehicular traffic, and let the pedestrians, the buses, and the cyclists rule? The number is 877-301-8970. The fight's going on in Cambridge. It's going on in Boston. It's going on in parts of Boston, now in West Roxbury. And we want to try to get your sense of where we are in the middle of 2023 on, as I said, who owns the roads.
Well, let me say first, I'm a big hypocrite since I drive here. I could take the green line here. I don't have a great parking space right across the street there.
You do.
So I drive here. The green line is slower than it used to be when I took the green line to work every single day.
Why don't you run? You always talk about how the people on the globe ran faster than the green line.
I want to have my hair looking good
okay,
when I get here, Jim. You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean.
But the point is, they got this great story, the Globe editorial about West Roxbury fighting over it. And apparently, Center Street in West Roxbury is extremely unsafe. Their accident rate is 34% higher than comparable roads around here. It's bad for cars. It's bad for pedestrians. It's bad for everybody. So they talk about how Marty Walsh tried to do something about this when he was mayor to maybe change the configuration of Center Street. He backed down.
He did.
As he backed down on some other things. I like Marty Walsh, but he was backing down a lot in school stuff and other things. They point out in this editorial that the new mayor of Boston, that would be Michelle Wu, a woman, is much less inclined to fold in the face of opposition. And she is trying to push through this plan to change Center Street in West Roxbury from 4 lanes to 2 lanes, to make it safer for cars, make it safer for pedestrians, and make it safer for the bicyclists. And the question in the Globe asks is are the bicycle haters going to prevail here, as they so often do? And as you know, you complained about this over there in Cambridge, Jim, that you had to walk, I think you had to walk 3 stores fronts down to buy your birthday cake.
To buy my own birthday cake at Flower, that's correct.
Which says something that Jim had to buy his own birthday cake.
That does say something.
Apparently, 3 storefronts was too far for you. That's the question.
It's actually about 5 storefronts.
Okay, well, if people are going to be able to walk a block, are we going to be able to take this in the United States of America to get to our dry cleaners or our bakery to buy our birthday cake?
This may shock you, and it will shock our friend Stacey Thompson from Livable Streets. I'm really ready to do a 180 on this thing. I mean, I was complaining.
Me too.
By the way,
too.
the cycling thing is not just my personal inconvenience, and I admitted that was what I was complaining about. There's a safety issue for cyclists. There's a safety issue for drivers as well. And when you read this great story, I think we mentioned it in passing the other day about Leipzig, which is a city of almost the exact same number of people, 600,000 plus, in Germany, where they basically are doing everything you need to do to address climate change and is this the 21st century?
I believe it is, yes.
21st century, whatever it is. And we're not doing it here. And with a bold mayor, as you just read from that editorial, I think the answer is you just have to go for it. I mean, shut down parts of the downtown for safety reasons, for environmental reasons. I'm ready to walk 5 storefronts to get my birthday cake.
On the news front?
No, what do you say?
Because of wildfires in Canada,
I know,
we have breathing problems right here
in
Boston. So we're sitting around here doing next to nothing about anything, and this is an effort. Like I said, I am a hypocrite, but I think that we've got to start facing reality. We can't drive as much as we used to.
Why don't you take the Green Line again? I can't, because the Green Line's like about a block from your house.
Because the Green Line, now you can wait 20 minutes to get a train.
Well, I thought you could go on your phone, though. Isn't there an app that tells you when it's coming?
Yeah, there is an app that tells
So what's the matter with that?
It's coming. Well, you have to run down the street. I mean, the point is the T is not as fast
You're
as it used to
dancing
be.
a little bit, you know?
It's not as fast as it used to be. It's not as reliable as it used to be.
Were you in a rush to go? Were you in such a rush to go?
I need to get here, Jim.
You
to
do?
prepare for the show.
You know what you can do maybe next time? Maybe you can get my birthday cake at Flower. Maybe you can double park on Mass
I think
Ave.
if I'm late, I get harangued. Do I not? A little
You know,
bit?
we've asked, Mayor, we're going to get to your calls and texts in a second at 877-301-8970. We've asked Mayor Wu a lot. I am betting, I have no inside knowledge, that something big is coming. We've talked, remember when they temporarily closed down Copley over here, which was great. Even I wasn't complaining, even though it did inconvenience me in terms of the way we get out of here after our show is over. I think she's going to do something big because she is all climate changed up.
Yep, she is.
Regularly praised by the guy we follow, Bill McKibben, who started this whole movement kind of thing. I really hope she's as bold as the situation demands. And if people like me who are selfish enough to only worry about how far I have to walk to get a birthday cake are willing to essentially compromise and move on this issue, I think a lot of people are now too. 877-301-8970.
I think it's one of the sad things in our history that if previous mayors didn't knuckle under so easily on different issues, we wouldn't be in some of the problems we're in now. And we seem to have a mayor, and again, she's a woman, Asian woman, who seems ready to stand up to people like the police department in Boston.
Well, let's see. I mean, again, you're right. She said the right things. The thing you care about most is the police contract. And she said there's a red line around arbitration. Let's see. And there's a president of the United States who you admire a lot, too, who said there's a red line around Syria. The line was crossed, and he allowed it to be crossed. Let's see if Mayor Wu is willing to do the ultimate fight. Let's take some calls. 877-301. Anything about who owns the streets and what the configuration should be and how bold we should be is on the table.
Let's go to Liz in Jamaica Plain.
Hi, Liz. Hi, Liz.
Hi, thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
I cycle commute with my kids every day. I live in Jamaica Plain, and I actually go through that strip in West Roxbury a couple times a week. It's not safe.
Yeah.
And so I haven't seen the plans that the city is proposing, but it definitely needs to be safer for everyone. And the only thing the thing I'm most hoping for is that the bike lanes are proper protected lanes, because the painted bicycle picture on the road doesn't do much.
Totally. They have to be cycle tracks. They have to be physically segregated to protect the cyclists. Even I have embraced that all along. You're totally right, Liz. When you say you cycle commute with your kids, how old are your kids?
They are 6 and 7, and they come on the bike with me. I have one of those electric assist cargo bikes.
Oh, that's pretty good.
And we go from JP, and we go to the YMCA out in West Roxbury all the time. And so we stop at the bakery. I use vacuum repair shops there, watch repair shops there. I go to Roche Brothers there. And I would do a lot more in West Roxbury if it were safer. Right now, I pretty much only go when I want to take the kids to the Y, because it's the least safe part of my cycling around Boston.
Well, especially when you're with your kid.
So and I really hope that it's going to get better. I cycle year round. I put snow tires on the bike in the winter.
Oh,
good for you.
Yeah. And it's great. The kids love it. I like it. And I try to go on the safe parts in Boston.
Got it.
That is not a safe spot. So I'm really happy they're going to fix it if they do it right.
Well, we'll see. I want to grow up to be you, Liz. I mean, that was great. No, really, that's a nice role modeling kind of thing. Liz, thanks for the call.
But it is unsafe. It was unsafe before the pandemic, and post the pandemic, it's worse because more people are doing the double parking to pick up stuff at restaurants, and there's a lot of hazards on Center Street.
Do you jaywalk, by the way? Speaking of hazards.
I do. I try to go to the crosswalk.
Did you see that California passed a law saying that it is perfectly fine to jaywalk anywhere you want?
Well, what you can't help noticing if you go to visit California, people stop for pedestrians crossing the street in California. In Boston, they toot and yell at you out the window.
It's like a sport
you got to run. If you're in the middle of the street here when you shouldn't be crossing over. Now, do you jaywalk from across the street to Lennox Hotel to here?
As opposed to going to the corner?
Or do you walk down to the corner? I don't walk down to the corner to get in the crosswalk. I walk across here, and if cars are coming and I'm in the middle of the road,
you want me to tell the truth or no?
What?
You know what I do. I ask you to block the traffic, so that I can cross in the middle of the street. And
That's right.
more often than not are willing to do it, which I really admire.
With a big sign, Jim Brownie is crossing.
Exactly. It's okay to just use my first name, but that's fine. Sarah in the car, you're next on Boston Public Radio. Thank you for calling. Hi.
Thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
So here's my thing. I work at an Amazon delivery station.
Mm-hmm.
So my question is, you might be able to say, oh, well, during these hours, it's only going to be pedestrians. But what happens if the drivers hit traffic or hit construction and they can't get there during that time? What if people, consumerism, what are people supposed to do about getting their packages?
Well, can I tell you what, I'm not an expert on this, but the places that have closed streets, what's the name of the street in Burlington? Is it Church Street?
Church Street.
Church Street is like that. There's a street in Brooklyn now. There are a ton of streets in my hometown of Philadelphia. And what they do is the deliveries are really early in the morning. And some of the streets that allow the delivery, not some, the streets don't allow cars on those streets, but I'm making up a time, from like 6 to 8:30 in the morning. It's only people like you who are delivering stuff. And generally, I think that's been perceived to be enough of a window. Would that work for you, Sarah?
I'm on your side, Jim. I see the way the vans destroy the roads. I'm on your side. I think we should have more, pedestrian-only access areas.
Well, I'm glad, and I hope it doesn't make your life more difficult. I think there are ways to deal with it. Sarah, thank you for your call. We appreciate it.
The message from one of our staffers that said that Montreal shuts down entire thoroughfares for parts of the summer. And as you mentioned, Brooklyn has that huge four-way, I think it's Vanderbilt or something like that. It's the greatest thing. The whole street is shut down. They have people eating in restaurants out in the middle, and they have this big, every Saturday night, they have a big dancing party. It's either folk dancing or it's what do you call the thing? Tango dancing, or it's waltzing, or it's hip hop, or they have all different music every weekend. It's great.
If I mention something that I saw in Belgium, are you going to mock me for having been in Belgium?
Go ahead.
So I was in Belgium, and I can't remember the name of the city. I'll think of it or look it up in a second. The whole downtown is closed, and I was complaining when I heard about it. We went anyway. You park on the outskirts. You know what happens when you park on the outskirts in a pretty little...
they come and pick you up in a little bus?
What are those things called? Jitneys or some such thing? They have these little buses that are 10-seaters or whatever that are free, that transport you from the outskirts of the city to downtown. Or whatever that place is called. I just can't remember the name. Someone may text it. It's smaller than Boston, but Leipzig, as we read, is comparable size to Boston, and it's working. And Wu is a bold person. Whether you like her boldness or not, I think she's the person to make these kind of moves.
And the other thing is, too, for people that have issues with walking, for people that have some kind of, they are handicapped people, they have to make some accommodation, obviously, because they can't be walking in a block or two to get their birthday
We call
cake.
those disabled people in 2023.
People, that's right.
Thank you.
Dean from Hyde Park, thank you for calling.
No, it's not Ghent, but thank you, whoever proposed that. Keep trying. I think it starts with a B. It's not Brussels. It's smaller. Try B. And I can tell you, it's home. Bruges. Thank you very much, Zoe. And I think what's that great Belgian beer called with little clown on the glass?
I have absolutely no idea.
No idea. But it is Bruges. Thank you, Zoe, for that.
Dean from Hyde Park, thank you for calling.
Hey, Dean, what's up?
I hope, thank you for taking my call. I hope that the mayor's boldness will result in some bolder barriers for the bike lanes, because the barriers that they have, this plastic poles, are really flimsy and they get routinely run over by cars. And once they're down, they allow cars to just ignore the fact that there's a bike lane there in the first place. I'm talking specifically about American Legion Highway in the southern end of the city, but I've seen this elsewhere. So they really need to improve that infrastructure and sort of harden it and make it more durable and more permanent, because it's like they use the cheapest material they could find.
Are you a cyclist?
Yeah.
Are you nervous when you're out cycling in the city because of the things you just mentioned?
I mean, yeah, life is fragile. So, you
yeah,
you got to be careful.
Yeah,
I know the risks, but I would like to, increase my odds.
Well, it seems to me there are two things, Dean. Since you have more expertise than I, we'd all like to increase our odds. It seems there are only two options. One of those cycle tracks where there's an actual physical barrier constructed. The other thing they do on, what's the name of the street that leads from Alston into Cambridge, whatever it's called, where they have the car park maybe 6 feet away from the sidewalk, and the parked car serves as a barrier. That works too, right?
Yeah, it does. I mean, it depends on what the street looks like, because the passenger you can still get doored by the passenger.
Yeah, that's true.
Up. It used to be that the driver would door you if they're parked along the curb and you're riding to the left of the car. But you can still get doored by a passenger, but it's better than nothing. The bottom line is, there needs to be a better barrier if they're going to isolate a dedicated bike lane.
Dean, we appreciate your call. Thanks so much for making it.
We're getting lots of texts from people in Boston that go through Center Street in Roxbury. Kate in Rosendale says it's a nightmare. The road needs to be redesigned, safer for all modes of transportation. It's insane. Near misses almost daily. And somebody just, they didn't sign it, but this person says, I live in Rosendale near West Roxbury Center Street. What I'd like to see is a slow AF driving club.
Well, also
making reference to
speaking of slow
AF
pedestrians,
Club. Yeah.
Isn't one of the things being contemplated or more of those little islands in the middle of the street
Yes.
for people who are not fast enough, particularly older people who can't make it the whole way across?
You see that all the time on Beacon Street, people that look like they're well into their 90s trying to get across the street, and of course it's a big street, they can't get across in time, and the cars are sitting there and people are getting steamed. I mean, one of these days you expect someone to just start tooting the horn and run.
You know what's
somebody
amazing,
down.
by the way, is that some of those 90-year-olds are running for president, which is really incredible.
I believe he's 81,
amazing.
Jim. Don't rush
I don't
him.
mean just him. I'm talking
Okay,
about
we're
others.
talking about whether we should get really serious about causing less congestion in our city, having fewer cars, more bicyclists, more walking, more little jitneys, so Jim can get a ride to
Love
get
the word
his
jitney.
birthday cake at the grocer that's like half a block down the street.
It's not a grocer, it's Flour Bakery.
Okay, Flour Bakery. I'm
Thank
sorry.
you.
You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library, streaming online at Facebook.com.
A new PR campaign from the Biden administration for the American public to see that they're enforcing the law by showing people what happens to migrants who come through the U.S. southern border without authorization.
We had media events at the airports to observe some deportation flights and to film what was happening.
Rebranding U.S. border policies next time on The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you. And North Shore Music Theater, presenting Beautiful, the Carole King musical, now playing on stage at Bill Haney's North Shore Music Theater through June 18th. Tickets at nsmt.org. And the Children's Trust, managers of Safe Kids Thrive, helping youth-serving organizations keep kids safe from sexual abuse. Prevention plans at safekidsthrive.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. What we're talking about is sort of our overarching thing is who owns the streets of Boston and greater Boston? What should the mix be? Cyclists, drivers, jitneys, pedestrians, all that sort of thing. And would you like to see Mayor Wu go for it? There'd be a lot of controversy and be bold and shut down a lot of the downtown. 877-301-8970. Can you explain one text to me?
What?
Jason from Wellfleet. Did you read this one?
No.
I don't know what he's talking about. Jim and Marjorie must feel like I feel after coming home from a hard day's work with pizza. Everyone is excited, just not necessarily for me. Oh, the Guster thing.
Oh,
that's what he's talking about.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
You know, we had them on a couple of years ago, by the
We
way.
did. It was
Not only
great.
they play great, they are great. And for those who don't know, they were formed, the three core guys were formed in a dorm room at Tufts University.
That's right.
Well, thank you, Marjorie.
That's right.
I appreciate
think
that.
there are 3 or 4 members that all got together at Tufts and are still
No, the
together all
fourth
these
was a
years
later joiner in.
4 later joiner in. Tommy from New Hampshire
What does he
says,
say?
I think you should be able to run over everybody, walkers who brazenly walk out in front of your car. There you
Didn't
go.
Marty Walsh get in trouble on our show when he made a flip comment about pedestrians? Am I right about that, or am I not
He
right
did.
about that?
He got in a lot of trouble.
You have
There was
no
a lot
idea
of
what I'm
blowback.
talking
yes,
about,
he
right?
said something about people getting hit by something, and he changed his mind a week later and apologized
He did?
for something. Yeah, we're getting a lot
can
of
tell she
texts
doesn't recall what
from
I'm talking
it was something about walkers or bicyclists or something, and the you know what hit the fan.
Yes, it did.
So Deb for West Roxbury, yet another person complaining about Center Street. You take your life in your hands. If jaywalking was legal, the jaywalkers here would be piled up on the curbs of Center Street.
That's a nice image.
Yeah.
That's really a very nice
Mow
image.
them down. Just mow them down. They should get together with the guy from New Hampshire who just says he wants to mow down the jaywalkers himself.
Wow, listen, here is Zoe came up with this in like a nanosecond. Here's what Marty Walsh said on our show. There's a lot of talk about what the city is doing to make everything safer. Pedestrians need to be safer. Pedestrians, said Marty Walsh, need to put their head up when they're walking down the street. Take your headphones off. You got to understand cars are going to hit you. I don't think that's that horrible, but he did take a lot of heat for it.
Well, we aren't
I guess he was sort of
supposed to
blaming the pedestrian rather than...
We aren't supposed to be walking around with our little earbuds.
I hate that, by the way.
Yeah.
Don't you hate that?
Yes, I do.
Okay, fine. Where are we going? Let's go to Prabhakar. I hope I pronounced your name right in JP. Did I come close?
Yes, it's excellent.
Thank you. My pleasure. Welcome to the show.
So I've been biking for about 20 years in Boston and really excited about the changes which are happening. So thanks to Mayor Wu.
Mm-hmm.
One of the issues is that having a dedicated bike lane is good, but it's not maintained. In Boylston Street in the Fenway area, all the physical barriers are routinely knocked down and crushed by the cars when they're parked badly, and nothing is done. And all the way leading to Longwood Medical Area, it's a real problem. So when I bike there, I routinely have to kind of go around cars all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So some police presence and repairing them is important. It's not just putting the bike lanes in, as you know. Thank you.
You're talking about those orange things, right? The orange plastic things that get not trampled, that's the wrong verb, crushed by the cars.
There are also these white upright things which can
Same deal.
go up.
Okay.
And, one time crushing, it just becomes flat. And
I got it.
It's free for all.
Prabhakar, thank you for the call. We appreciate it.
Here's a couple of good texts. I know your show is called Boston Public Radio. You need to remember most of the people driving in Greater Boston are commuting from outside the city. It costs $21 round trip per day to take the commuter rail.
I don't know.
If they don't want us to drive, they need to provide reasonable alternatives. I mean,
well,
it's
congestion pricing is one of the things they're talking about. And there are also a lot of major cities in the world, London being one. Doesn't New York do this in parts where you pay extra to be driving downtown during key hours?
But it is interesting that when they stopped charging for buses on those certain routes in the city, what happened? The ridership went way up.
That's a shock, isn't it?
And West Roxbury is going wild over there. Corey in West Roxbury says she lives there. This debate is constantly raging. Those of us who want to change are in the majority, but the opponents are loud and very angry, and it's led to a lot of conflict in the neighborhood.
I'm not reading the text. Anybody else suggesting that they would be willing to pick up my birthday cake next year if we...
Not yet, Jim. I'll keep looking.
By the way, I have to be honest. Even though I am beginning to come around on this issue, it is really aggravating when virtually all the parking spaces... I interviewed those people in Greater Boston. I can't remember their names, who own this neighborhood little fabulous barbershop in North Cambridge.
Yes.
It's on Mass Ave.
Right.
If someone can tell me the name, it'd be great. They got a lot of play around the world, actually. They're almost on the Arlington line, and they removed parking spaces. And I assume when I saw the report and I talked to the woman on the phone, this is about a year ago, that they were being exaggerating a little bit. You couldn't park anywhere for blocks and blocks and blocks. Fast Phil, Zoe, you are on fire. Thank you. She should be doing the show instead of me. And they have a lot of patrons who are older people getting their hair cut, and they can't walk that kind of distance. So if somebody is not dropping them off, they can't patronize the business. It's a real problem. Having said that, a jitney, for example, I am sorry to obsess on the jitney. If from a parking
little
lot,
golf carts.
Well, that's a variation on a theme. If a little jitney picked you up, like at Alewife, for example, which is maybe a mile away from Fast Phil's, and drove you there, Marjorie's totally disinterested in this.
No, I absolutely am. I think it's a great point. Yeah, because
you ever been on a jitney?
I don't even know what a jitney is.
Jitney is like a little tiny bus.
A little teeny
it's
tiny bus.
Like a little teeny
okay.
tiny bus.
Maybe little teeny tiny buses then, or golf carts or something. Because obviously there's a lot of people that are older people, or people who are disabled or whatever that can't get to a place easily. So you're going to accommodate those people. But
I wouldn't mind a jitney just to get me across the street over to Lenox to get my car at the end of the show. You know?
Well, yeah, I think it's better than you wanting to be carried over.
Sedan chairs. It's my next contract. Walter in New Hampshire, you're next on Boston Public Radio. Thank you much for calling. Hi, Walter. Walter, say something.
So your original question is who owns the streets of Boston?
That was my question.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
That's why we said yes.
Yeah, great. Yeah, so your original question is who owns the streets of Boston? Obviously, the city of Boston does. And the problem we have in America is that the streets have come to be treated as private property, both for drivers, where the charge is usually $0 to drive, as you referenced.
You're
you need
totally
congestion
right.
pricing, obviously. And for parking, it's now considered a right when you buy or rent an apartment in an area of Boston. You're assigned essentially leasing rights to a parking
That is
space
true.
in the area, even though that's public property.
That is true.
So if you've got a scarce resource, you have to allocate it on something other than political lobbying, or you're going to end up with very inefficient results, i.e., taking a half an hour to drive like 3 miles in downtown Boston. So you need congestion pricing. You need to charge people for the negative effects on everyone else. Every time someone gets in a car, they slow everyone else down, and that's even before you get into the pollution, conventional and carbon, CO2. So
those are all good points.
You need congestion pricing.
And you know why we don't have congestion pricing primarily is because Charlie Baker opposed it. And the point, remember when Chris Dempsey was on our show all the time and when he ran for auditor, we obviously had to replace him because he was a candidate, and Stacey Thompson replaced him wonderfully. Chris used to say all the time, the goal is to get more people to ride mass transit, but during the Baker administration, the transportation thing that we want people to do, the price has gone up twice, meaning on the T. The transportation thing we want people to get away from has seen no increase in price. So behaviorally, it's more likely people are going to continue driving. Walter, next time the governor's with us, I don't know if we've ever talked to her about congestion pricing and all that kind of thing, but we will.
I'm not
Thank
clear
you for your thoughts.
why Baker was opposed to it. I didn't.
I think his line was, I don't mean, it sounds...
You're penalizing people that
I think he said
have
poor
lower
people who
wage
commute,
jobs.
who have no choice. But the answer is then you figure out some creative way like they're doing in other communities. I assume other communities are concerned about low-income workers, and I assume they address that kind of thing. I don't know how they did it, but I assume they did.
Janet from Porter Square, Cambridge. I don't mind the bikes or bike lanes, but as a pedestrian, I don't feel safe when they ignore the traffic lights, the bikes, electric bikes, motorized scooters, and skateboards. Even those with kids on board constantly go through the red lights. My husband and I have both been clipped and almost clipped more than a half dozen times. I'm begging the bikers and cars with pedestrians to follow the rules.
By the way, part of my animus that historically I've been not proud of is because traffic laws, which apply equally to cyclists and cars, are enforced sort of okay against cars, not at all. Have you ever seen a cyclist stopped by a police officer for going through a red light or making an illegal turn? Never.
I haven't.
And I think a lot of the animus between the two would be removed if they were treated equally, even though, don't bother texting, I know a cyclist is at much greater risk from a car than a driver of a car is from a cyclist. I get that.
Well, there's a bike lane on the left-hand side of Commonwealth Avenue, which I think works really well.
Yeah.
And I drive here in the morning, so they're not worrying about car doors opening. But there are bicyclists who are still driving in the right-hand lane, even though the bicycle is in the left-hand lane. And I think they're rushing to get to work, and they lose their patience.
Well, shut it down then, when you wouldn't have to worry about it. Let's try to squeeze one. No, you have 30 seconds, Chris in Cambridge. Take it. Go.
Guys, I just want to say that I love the framing of the article from the Globe today.
Yes.
Which said that not everything has to be a culture war.
I wish we had mentioned that. That's great.
Pedestrians. It doesn't have to be this terrible thing that everybody else decides they hate because they like to drive and they like to park. There are some win-wins. This stuff is really good. Going from a 4-lane to a 3-lane is not going to create a traffic, Carmageddon or whatever that everybody says it will. So I'm really glad that you guys are covering this. And, just as a cyclist myself, I would say, I think the number of times I see cars go through red lights, every single time I go through an intersection is, some people just kind of filter that out and accept it.
Got it. We got to go, Chris. That was a great call.
Hey, that was a great call.
I'm really glad
I think
you
you
brought
should
up the
run
culture
for
war
office,
thing.
Chris.
That was great.
Coming up, we're going to talk with Boston Globe travel writer Christopher Muther. One of his topics, how drag queens, long the source of fun and laughs,
It's
Support for our programs comes from you. And The Huntington, presenting the Lehman Trilogy, a story of family, ambition, and risk. Winner of the 2022 Tony Award for Best Play. The New York Post calls it a must-see event, June 13th to July 16th. HuntingtonTheater.org. Hear the local perspectives of the people who bring Boston to life and take a deep dive into the issues affecting the Commonwealth and the nation. Watch Greater Boston, Mondays through Thursdays at 7 on GBH2.
Trusted. Local. News. You're listening to 89.7 WGBH, HD1 Boston, online at gbhnews.org. GBH News with NPR. What matters to you.
John King for the latest in Washington, including California Governor Gavin Newsom attacking Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and the newest indictment watch for former President Donald Trump. After that, ahead of dual shows with Keith Flockhart and the Boston Pops, we'll talk with and listen to indie rock heavyweights Guster. No tickets required. Come to the Boston Public Library or listen and watch us on youtube.com/GBH News. All that ahead, Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Windsor Johnston. Former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie is expected to officially launch his bid for the White House in 2024. NPR's Domenico Montanaro reports the Republican is set to make the announcement today at an event in Manchester, New Hampshire.
There's a reason that Christie's kicking off his campaign in New Hampshire. It's a key early nominating state, and Christie's team believes New Hampshire, which is home to lots of Republican-leaning independents, offers him the right kind of potential launching pad for the nomination. But this Republican Party isn't the same as when Christie ran in 2016. GOP voters now are far more pro-Trump than they were then. Christie's team is well aware of the tall odds, but winning may not be the point anyway. His campaign slogan is "Tell it like it is," and he wants to take on Trump directly. Domenico Montanaro, NPR News, Washington.
Former Vice President Mike Pence is expected to announce his candidacy during a stop in Iowa on Wednesday. World leaders are condemning the destruction of a major dam in southern Ukraine. The Biden administration says it's very concerned and is trying to find out more about the potential impact. NPR's Lauren Frere reports the United Kingdom's Foreign Secretary, who is visiting the region this week, is comparing the destruction of the dam to a war crime.
From Ukraine, UK Foreign Secretary James Cleverly tweeted that the destruction of this dam is, quote, an abhorrent act. He went on, intentionally attacking exclusively civilian infrastructure is a war crime, he wrote.
That's NPR's Lauren Frere reporting from London. Ukrainian officials are blaming Russian forces for blowing up the dam. Moscow is denying those claims. Atlanta's City Council has voted to approve funding for a police training center in the city. Peter Biello with Georgia Public Broadcasting reports the project has been a focal point for those denouncing police violence.
After more than 14 hours of public comment, mostly from opponents, councilors voted 11-4 in favor of spending $31 million for the controversial project. The 85-acre training center for first responders includes a mock city for urban environment training that protesters call Cop City. Opponents say this facility will further militarize the police and perpetuate, quote, racist policing. Proponents say the police need a better place to train. The vote comes at an emotionally charged moment for the city. Last week, 3 organizers of a fund meant to support protesters were arrested and charged with charity fraud, a move some say was a heavy-handed attempt to silence dissent. For NPR News, I'm Peter Biello in Atlanta.
Stocks are trading mixed on Wall Street at this hour. The Dow is down 10 points. The Nasdaq Composite trading higher, up 71. You're listening to NPR News in Washington.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Boston Mayor Michelle Wu wants to renovate the West Roxbury Educational Complex, making it the new facility for one of the city's exam schools. GBH's Diana Dame has more on the proposal to make it home to the O'Brien School of Math and Science.
The O'Brien High School currently shares a campus with Madison Park Technical and Vocational High School in Roxbury, but city officials say both schools need more space. Wu says the move will allow the O'Brien, in particular, to admit as many students as the city's two other exam schools, the Boston Latin Academy and Boston Latin School.
It would also be able to expand the student body enrollment at the O'Brien by about 400 students, from 1,600 to 2,000 approximately. And this would allow us, again, to build out that 7th and 8th grade. So like our other high schools, they have that full experience.
The West Roxbury Educational Complex has been closed and mothballed by the city for about 5 years. In Boston, I'm Diana Dame, GBH News, 89.7.
The first ship carrying wind turbine blades for Vineyard Wind is scheduled to arrive in New Bedford tomorrow morning around 10 a.m. The blades are coming from a General Electric plant in Canada, each one about the length of a football field. Workers will offload the blades at the New Bedford Marine Commerce Terminal. That's where the turbines will be partially assembled before installation begins later this summer. The Vineyard Wind project will have 62 turbines located 15 miles south of Martha's Vineyard. 69 degrees outside our studios right now, very hazy from those wildfires in Canada.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Fisher Investments. Fisher Investments' team of specialists offer guidance on investing, retirement income, and Social Security. FisherInvestments.com. Investments in securities involve the risk of loss.
I'm Henry Santoro. This is GBH News.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of Boston Public Radio. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library. We are streaming at facebook.com/GBH News and youtube.com/GBH News as we do on Tuesdays and Fridays. Hello again, Jim.
Hello again, Marjorie. And for those who are asking, and for those who aren't asking, Guster will be performing here live at about 1:30 this afternoon, ahead of a performance tonight with the Boston Pops and another one tomorrow night. But the right days, yes, I do.
That's right. And you can just show up. No tickets needed. No,
you don't
nothing.
need tickets?
Just walk in. No,
it's free. Can you stay as long as you want?
Stay as long or as little as you want.
Can you leave as soon as you want?
You can come in and leave as soon as you want. You can ignore us and just watch them and leave.
Exactly. That's what I would do. I mean, let's be honest. We're joined now on Zoom by Boston Globe travel writer, I have to say, looking fetching in prison stripes, Christopher Muther. How are you, Christopher? You look terrific.
Why, thank you.
You're welcome.
Jim, I know you know this, but prison stripes go the other way. This is a French sailor's shirt.
French sailor shirt. Sorry. I think French sailor, and I think you, Christopher, actually.
So you apparently couldn't be here in person today because you are at an undisclosed location, but you're about to disclose it to us. Where are you?
Yeah.
In your sailor shirt?
I'm in New Haven, where everyone wears a sailor shirt. I'm staying at like a brutalist masterpiece called Hotel Marcel in New Haven, which was designed by Marcel Breuer. So it's just if you enjoy the look of City Hall, this is the hotel for you. Purely from an architectural standpoint, but this will be part of a story that's running this week in the Globe on best places to stay in New England this summer.
So I'm curious because, as you know, City Hall in Boston has been criticized brutally over the years for the brutalist
so to speak,
architecture. Yeah. But so was this built years ago and transformed into a luxury hotel, or did they want to do the brute thing for the hotel?
I would love if someone built a new brutalist building. This one was built in 1970 for the Armstrong Rubber Company and has been repurposed, and it is the first zero fossil fuel hotel.
Oh, really?
Good for them.
Yeah.
That's great.
Well, didn't you sort of bury the lead? Isn't that the big deal? Is that the big deal or not?
No, the big deal is the IKEA is 3 steps away, but that's a different story.
Okay. Well, listen, you wrote a great piece about drag queens, how it used to be kind of Milton Berle's show and Tony Curtis and Jack Lemmon and Some Like It Hot and all sorts of comedians.
Flip Wilson, Geraldine.
Yeah, it was kind of like this source of a bunch of laughs, and how now it's seen as some horrible object of attack by conservative politicians. So what happened?
It's interesting because I think there were a couple of things. One was the advent of Drag Queen Story Hour.
Yep.
And immediately conservative groups started pointing at this and saying that drag queens were grooming kids to either become drag queens, to become gay, to become trans. And all I can say is, I'm going to repeat a quote from someone in the story, which is, I was groomed to be straight. And you see how that worked out. I'm wearing a French blouse in a brutalist hotel in New Haven. I mean, you can't get gayer than that, right?
I mean, but isn't that true for millions of men and women that have turned out to be gay? I mean, their parents were straight, and somehow their teachers were straight, and their neighbors were straight, and somehow what happened? Who was grooming them?
Yeah.
Who groomed you, Christopher?
The miracle of biology.
I guess so.
Yeah. So all of this really started coming out. No pun intended. About a year or two ago, when the Proud Boys and other conservative groups started showing up at drag story hours, really trying to draw attention to this whole thing and really making it more salacious than it actually is. Drag story hour, as you know, is a drag queen dressed up reading a children's book to children. What conservative groups have tried to do is kind of sexualize that in a horrible way, because that's not what's happening. I mean, think of a drag queen as like a clown. There's someone in makeup and funny clothes, and the idea is that, kids will pay attention more to these books. And so, as you know, Tennessee was the first state to pass sort of an anti-drag ordinance, which thankfully was overturned by a federal judge.
By a Trump-appointed, nominated federal judge, by the way.
Yes, and Florida is the second. But let me just throw in here quickly. The anti-drag bills have really taken attention away from the anti-trans legislation that has been wrapped around them, which sort of blocks gender-affirming care for trans kids, which means they won't allow kids to take hormone blockers, those sorts of things, or seek out care. But the drag queen advent is recent, and I found it really ironic because right now, drag queens have never been sort of more popular than they are right now. You think about RuPaul's Drag Race, and, it's evolved to such an art form. I mean, it's really just incredible. But at the same time, these drag queens are under attack. So it's a real dichotomy of America.
By the way, they're not just under attack in terms of words. We had the drag queen in who was performing or reading at the library in JP when the neo-Nazis showed up outside.
Right.
And
Very scary.
Those are dangerous, scary situations when not only the performer's at risk, but the kids are at risk and their families are at risk.
But it's also the great outfits, all the spangles and the sparkles and the wild hair and the wild makeup.
Ryan Landry does this on the Cape,
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a whole shtick it's just sort of fun.
It's the whole thing of reading people, which is, throwing shade. It's like, it's this really clever, on your feet kind of insults and comedy. And, it's really fantastic. Now, James, AKA Jim, knows about this because I've seen him perform in Provincetown under his drag moniker, Jane Rowdy. So,
and your point is what? What's your point?
My point is that I am supportive of the drag community and you, Jim.
By the way,
how did Jim
you
look?
got the name wrong.
Spangles
but the name is Jane Rowdy and the French Sailors, I believe is the group that you're referring to. So, Christopher Muther, can we get back to your day job? By the way, you've written some fabulous and powerful things outside your normal travel world, but back to your travel world. You spend a lot of time making sure that we don't conflate Kennebunk and Kennebunkport. And I have to be honest, nobody cares. That's number one. However, what you did do brilliantly, which I love, it's sort of like what you did when you and your colleague went to the Cape and did all that fabulous analysis, breaking down everything from ice cream to seafood to places to stay. You did in Kennebunk a rating of high-end places, sort of middle of the road in terms of finance places, and cheaper places. And there are two that I'm particularly interested in. One place that I've heard about for ages, which is insanely expensive, but everybody says one of the greatest places ever, is the White Barn. Can you tell people about that place?
Yeah, the White Barn in Kennebunk, not Kennebunkport.
Thank you.
Is,
Thank you.
It falls under a sort of consortium of high-end hotels called Relais and Chateau, and it's sort of it's in a historic place. There's also like an iconic restaurant there, which is also very expensive and wonderful. But the rooms are in older buildings, depending on which room you're in, but just so beautifully done. It's the kind of hotel where every detail is thought of before you can think of it. And, the sheet thread counts are through the roof. The towels are the kind you dream about and wish you could afford at home. It's just, the mattress itself, I got into bed, I passed out. I was off season, and it was probably $900, $800 a night. So
that doesn't include the meal, right? The meal's in addition to that. How much?
Yeah, the meal's
How much
in
is
addition.
that? How much is the meal?
It's a prefix, and I think I'm just scrolling through the story because, at my age, it's hard to
remember what you wrote a week ago. Yeah, I know what you mean.
So it's like about 150.
It's very expensive.
Prefix. You can't do a la carte.
I actually went there about 20 years ago.
You never
yes,
told me
I did.
this.
I went there, and they had a jacuzzi in the room, and I was so excited about the jacuzzi in the room. I put bubble bath in the jacuzzi by mistake, and the bubbles were coming up over the top of the thing.
That's shocking. I can't imagine you doing that.
That is shocking.
Actually.
Yeah, someone gave it to me as a Christmas present. It was great.
So that's the White Barn. Let's go to the other end of the spectrum. And you say this former boys' school is not just affordable, but fabulous. Why is it fabulous, and how affordable is it, Chris Remuther?
So it is literally, and I never use the word literally, across the street from the White Barn Inn. So you've got a great location. So it's the Franciscan Guest House, which was originally built as sort of a Lithuanian boys' school in the late 50s and early 60s, which obviously is no longer there. They turned it into a hotel. And you asked about pricing. So off season, now remember what we just said about the White Barn, like $800, $1,200 a night, depending on the season. Off season at the Franciscan Guest House is $129 to $199 a night. And then high season, get this, you can get a room for $200 a night.
That's pretty incredible.
And it's like, where else can you get that in, coastal Maine? And the best part about it is it's adjacent to a monastery, and it's on 60 acres on the river, beautiful garden, with this incredible Lithuanian mid-century, and here we go again, brutalist chapel with just incredible stained glass windows. And I'm neither Lithuanian nor Catholic, and I was just blown away by all of it.
So the thing is, you could stay at the Franciscan Guest House and then go across the street and have your hugely expensive dinner at the White Barn
without
Inn.
spending $1,000 a night for the hotel.
Yeah, you wouldn't have the thread counts. Okay, that's not bad.
So is there anything? Why do you care? I'm sure I don't want. Why do you care about this distinction between Kennebunk and Kennebunkport, which you went on and on and on about, Christopher? Why do you care that much about that?
I don't recall going on and on about it.
A third on.
Excited about this.
Yeah.
Well, as a kid growing up, every summer I went to southern Maine for vacation. And So when we would go to Kennebunk and Kennebunkport, I had no idea which was which. Wow. I assumed Kennebunk was just people too lazy to say Kennebunkport and just saying, yeah, Kennebunk, instead of using, it's people who just use last names. And so for me, it was interesting. And there really is a distinct difference between the two. And I kind of like the feel of Kennebunk because the beaches there are sort of gorgeous. Not that beaches elsewhere in southern Maine aren't, but it really has a different feel about it, which I liked. And I thought readers would want to know, although now I know that radio hosts are not interested.
No, some radio hosts are not interested.
So where did the Bushes live? Was that Kennebunk or Kennebunkport?
Port, right?
Yeah.
Port, on Walker's Point.
On Walker's Point. That's pretty
incredible.
snazzy. That's where George H.W. had a cigarette boat, right? He and Babs used to whiz around the lake up there, or the water up there, whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember.
You know what everybody told us, including Brian McGrory, your former boss, that he would bump into Bush the Elder and how unbelievably sweet and warm and normal he was. I think, didn't Brian tell us one day that he's standing outside Brian's car, looking at the dogs in the back? And I mean, he sounds like a real mensch kind of thing. So can we come back from Kennebunk or Kennebunkport to Boston Port and talk about the newest luxury hotel, which is about to happen in the Back Bay, correct? What is it?
Yes, it's called Raffles. It's actually, they just announced it will open in early September.
Yeah.
Raffles, for those who are not familiar, started in Singapore. It's now officially based in London. And it's sort of along the lines of the Four Seasons. It's kind of most notorious it's where the Singapore sling, the drink, was invented.
Oh, gosh.
That's pretty interesting.
They have a kind of infamous bar called the Long Bar, and there'll be a version of the Long Bar in Boston too, where there'll be the Singapore sling. And I mean, this hotel is just gorgeous. I mean, anyone who's kind of been through Boston has noticed the change of landscape in Back Bay, and that's Raffles, which is not too far from the Hancock, another glass building. And the interiors are stunning. There's going to be 5 restaurants there, 5 restaurants and nightclubs combined.
5 restaurants? Wow.
Along with the lobby of the hotel.
Oh, I love this.
Is on the 17th floor.
I think that's great.
So you get in, you go up to the 17th floor, which is kind of where all the restaurants are and the bars. So immediately you have all these amazing views of the city. Right. And I've been following this hotel for ages and talking to the developers for ages. And I am kind of excited about it because I'm a hotel snob, first and foremost. Even though I do like a good boys' school monastery hotel.
I'm sure.
However, this place is going to be, so there's also a celebrity Michelin-starred chef who's going to have a restaurant there, a high-end Portuguese restaurant. It's going to be kind of cool.
So
I can't officially say that I haven't been there yet, but I think it'll be cool.
So Christopher Muther, one of the things in your piece is you mentioned that the nightly rate at the presidential suite is $10,000 to $15,000. And I've always wondered, and I mean this sincerely, how often is a presidential suite in a high-end hotel where it's $10,000 plus occupied? I mean, is this something they rent 4 nights a year, but it's there like a showpiece? What's the deal?
Oh, no, they are. I mean, so the Boston Harbor Hotel, which has an amazing presidential suite, it was recently redone. The price tag is around the same. It's occupied.
By whom? By whom?
Mostly by me.
No.
But there
French sailors. Okay, fine. No, but seriously, who are the kinds? I mean, it's international.
I bet there's a lot of rich families who
is?
have kids in school here.
Jesus.
I bet that would be one place.
Exactly.
That come from different countries. They want to come with their family and stay in the swankest place possible. I would bet that. Why do they have that lobby on the 17th floor?
That's great. Don't you love that?
Yeah, but it's unusual. I mean, is this having to do with climate change or what's it about?
That's kind of the best question I've ever heard.
It is?
People can just swim up.
That's
Shelley
right.
style,
That's
sign
right.
adventure.
I mean, if you come in the front door of the hotel, you must come into some sort of lobby.
You do. It's a very modest by raffle standard. Okay. And then I think, the 17th floor lobby, it's the first one Boston has.
Right.
And again, the idea is like you will go into this space. There's a giant 3-story spiral staircase in front of you. The idea is just like a wow factor. And I don't know, Jim, you didn't mention this, but just the regular hotel rooms will be the most expensive hotel rooms.
How much is that? How much is that?
Well, if you think about like Four Seasons, we're getting into the $1,000 plus, depending on what season of the year it is, because hotel rooms in Boston fluctuate pretty much a lot. But so think like high season, 1,500-ish. The developers didn't want to go into a lot of specific numbers with me, no matter how much I prodded or wore my best French sailor's outfit.
What is high season in Boston? I don't even know.
It would be summer.
Summer, it would be, okay.
It would also be fall when there's events happening, or Boston Marathon.
Okay. So it's a lot of little high seasons. Okay,
exactly.
I got you.
During the winters when the Franciscan monks stay there. You published something that I think was an important public service. You published countries, states, islands, the safest and unsafest places for LGBTQ travel. One, it is pathetic that it's got to be published. But there are some places that, we've talked about Uganda a lot this week. Forget Uganda. There's some islands where I know a lot of people go that are really scary places for LGBTQ people. You can't go down the whole list, and people can find it by Googling Christopher and safest and unsafest places for LGBTQ travelers. Give us some high and low lights, some surprises, at least in your estimation, Christopher.
Well, one of the reasons why I decided to run the list, people are always surprised about Jamaica.
Me too.
Jamaica is kind of a really, as you know, a popular honeymoon destination. I've heard, a beautiful place, but it's also very, very anti-LGBTQ when it comes to their laws. So, a lot of these countries is same-sex relations between men are the most illegal. So in Jamaica, it can land you in prison for a decade with hard labor. Which is, when I'm thinking of vacation with my husband, I'm like, well, let's see, 10 years of hard labor or
That's so funny.
Iceland, So a lot of other Caribbean restaurants, a lot of other Caribbean resorts, islands, even St. Vincent, which I've been to, St. Lucia, I've been to, Barbados. A lot of the islands that were sort of part of the British Commonwealth, they brought in religion, and it stuck hard. So those sort of religious views still dominate. And it is always surprising to me, but I would say if you're thinking, if you're LGBTQ and you're thinking of going to a Caribbean island, to definitely look into it first. The French islands are usually a better bet.
We have the ambassador from France to the U.S. with us tomorrow, right? We can actually add that to the list. One thing we should say about the
States.
No, how about the United States?
The United States is only 25th, which is really horrible. Canada's leading the list you gave us, right? Canada, Sweden, Netherlands, Malta, Norway, Portugal, Spain, Denmark, and Belgium.
We should make clear 25th means there are 24 countries where it is safer for LGBTQ people to travel, which is frightening.
But I wanted to give a shout out to Massachusetts. We're not first. Vermont is, but we're second in terms of friendliest states for LGBTQ plus people. So at least.
Right. I mean, when you break it down, I mean, New England did really well when it comes to state in the United States that did really well. There's this list, which is fantastic. You can find it on a blog called Asher in Lyric. If you just Google it, you'll find it very easily. And they also broke down countries and states. So, as you mentioned, United States ended up at number 25 on most gay friendly. And, and that's because of specific states like Florida and Tennessee. Florida, like several human rights groups in the U.S. issued a travel advisory to Florida, not just to LGBT folks, but also to Black folks, Latino, just because of high rates of violence. So vacation's wonderful, but, think about where you want to spend your money and your safety before you go.
Before you go, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, every New England state was on this list as friendliest in the top, except for Maine. Maine didn't even make the top 10, so I wondered what's going on in Maine.
Well, it's because people are confused between Kennebunk and Kennebunkport. That is the primary reason I think it is, isn't it?
Jim, you stole the line from me.
I thought I did.
But, the thing that I love about this list is it breaks down protections, laws, percentages of folks who identify as LGBT. So, Maine did well on the list. It just did crack the top.
Christopher, we got to go. Could you next time, if you could tell us the difference between England and New England, could you do that next time you're here? Could you do that?
Only if I write a long story with a very long introduction about the differences between.
I hope you do.
Okay.
For you, Jim, I think it's needed.
It's wonderful to see you
Christopher
from New Haven.
Muther, thank you very much.
Christopher Muther.
Love
Thank
all
you,
your
Christopher.
stories as usual.
We
Love
do.
talking to you. Boston Globe travel writer, Christopher Muther. Up next, our national security expert, Juliette Kayyem, is going to be here talking about this wild story about because of climate change, insurance companies are no longer willing to start new policies on houses in California. Is this indicative of things to come? We're talking to Juliette Kayyem up next. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library, and we are streaming at we are streaming at facebook.com/GBH News and youtube.com/GBH News.
And Swan Galleries with contemporary art at auction June 8th, featuring works from the collection of Norman Dolph and spanning abstract expressionism through 21st century art. Catalog and bidding at swangalleries.com and on the Swan app. And the Bach Center's Folk Americana Roots Hall of Fame, presenting Dark Star Orchestra performing the Grateful Dead's 1978 Boston Music Hall show at the Bach Center Wang Theater on Friday, June 23rd. More at bachcenter.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. We're live at the Boston Public Library. Jim Browdy, Marjorie Egan, streaming online at facebook.com/GBH News, youtube.com/GBH News. In exactly an hour, Guster will be here, both talking and playing. We're pretty excited about it. Hope you are too. We're joined now, though, by national security expert who is, quote, I just read this on her Twitter page, not just a voice, but a whole human being today. So moving. Juliette Kayyem. The whole human being is the former Assistant Secretary for Homeland Security under Barack Obama, faculty chair of the Homeland Security Program at Harvard's Kennedy School of Government. Her latest book is Marjorie's favorite title, The Devil Never Sleeps.
I do. I love it.
Learning to Live in an Age of Disasters. Hi, Juliette.
Hello.
How are you? Hello to you.
Everyone.
Yeah.
So
Hello.
it's so great to be here.
It's
and
nice
it's
to have
not
you.
raining.
I know, it's
got
wonderful.
Well, because you're not just a voice, but a whole
I
human
am
being. You know that?
who was tired of the rain the last 2 days. I was
Wow.
getting down.
It's depressing.
Yeah.
Very sad.
So, Juliette, I think you were the first person that put this in my head, the
Yes.
idea that, if the government won't do anything and Republicans are climate change deniers, the insurance companies are going to bring it on home when they will no longer offer new policies, as Allstate and State Farm are doing in California.
then.
But the second piece in the New York Times talks about how Florida, they're having an increasing problem with this, with hurricanes, Kentucky because of floods, Louisiana, and it's going to happen on Cape
Yes,
Cod
it
pretty
will.
soon, where they're not going to insure houses that are in climate change lines of fire.
Right. This is it. So is this the canary in the coal mine in which the insurance companies are just basically monetizing risk and saying no amount of a premium is going to be worth it. We know that this is just a lost asset eventually, maybe not today or tomorrow, but 3 or 5 years ago from now. So just to back up, right? So Allstate and other insurers announced last week that they would no longer insure the entire state of California.
It's
really amazing. I mean, they're not even doing a detailed risk assessment, right? They're just saying, here's a piece of land, and it's really big, and we're nervous, so we're going to walk away. And so that was pretty draconian and sort of woke up everyone. I really think insurance is sort of this underbelly, sort of exposing what we've been ignoring in climate change, which is we are allowing people to live in vulnerable areas. We are then pricing them out, or they're going to go uninsured, which is the most likely situation. Then when these things get wiped out, then public funds are going to have to step in. There's a lot of different things at play. The insurance companies are not all bad here. I mean, I know it's like easy to say they're bad.
Going bankrupt.
Well, they're going bankrupt, and they're also trying to drive a certain amount of behavior. I think leaving all of California is a little bit ridiculous, but if you can't insure your home, that's telling you something about your home's vulnerability. But let's just be clear, also your family's vulnerability, right? It's not just the home; it's the people in it that we should care about.
You see places. I'm familiar with Westport. that section between Fall River and New Bedford, where a lot of people have raised their houses up on stilts. But then you saw what happened in the last big hurricane in Florida, where the cement stilts are still there, and the house that was 10 or 15 feet above is just gone.
Yeah.
So the stilts protect you from the water; they don't protect you from the waves.
Exactly.
I mean,
or
the wind. The
right,
wind.
Exactly. And then you have fires and stuff like that. Look, we can build more sustainable. There are more sustainable ways to build against climate change, fire in particular, but certainly water. There are zoning rules, all sorts of things that local and federal governments can do. They haven't done that. They will start to do it in response. And so the insurance companies have done it first. I will say now I'm going to, sound like a free market Republican, but there is also an aspect to this of which a lot of insurance companies have been regulated out of being able to insure certain homes because there's all sorts of rules that do not allow them to raise premiums. We have to reconsider that. I mean, if people are going to live in vulnerable areas, their premiums should be higher vis-a-vis the people who are not living in those areas. It is a very, good, bad, whatever. I mean, basically, we got to wake up to the fact that we're what do they call it? Insurance deserts, right? That's what we're creating, areas that are uninsurable.
But there are a couple of things I don't know if you two touched on. Is the value of this, even though it's scary for the individual families, the homeowners, is it may force the phony Republicans who are in denial about climate change when they start hearing from their constituents saying, I can't insure my house, I can't insure my business, that may cause them to get religion. The one problem I have with this, which I'm really conflicted about, at least vis-a-vis California, I don't know about other states, I assume it's the same. When you can't get insurance, I love this in the health insurance field, I'm not sure I love it here. As you said a minute ago, the public sector steps in. Now, on one hand, you say that's obviously important because we don't want anybody to go uninsured. Right. On the other hand, they're sort of enabling the climate change deniers by saying you can't get Allstate, you can't get State Farm, I think either, but don't worry, you're going to get the government policy.
Well, Florida has done that already.
This is what's happened with the National Flood Insurance program is, right, when the private market left, the public market, the National Flood Insurance Program, and it's much more complicated than this, will step in to create at least some capacity to get your money back. Was that ultimately a good thing? It's hard to say. Then, and then if you look at disaster relief funds, like under the Stafford Act, your house goes down, say in Plum Island, you are paid to build back essentially the same.
We've talked about this.
So you have all these weird incentives based on, read the book, based on this notion that disasters are random and rare. And so, the devil never sleeps. These are going to keep happening. We have to rethink ways in which we're driving behavior.
Well, to just make my point even, I hope it's clear before, but let me make it clearer. The thing that the government is enabling are those in government who trash government. And I'll give you a good example. What is Rand Paul's father's name as a congressman? Ron Paul was sort of the leader of the libertarians, and legendary. He represented Texas. He didn't believe in government funding for any disaster relief until there was a flood in his home. I think it was Galveston, whatever it is, on the water. And then what bailed him out, forget bailed out the individuals, what bailed him out, the guy who says we don't want government money to deal with disasters, was the government came in and bailed him out. And while I surely don't want to see the people of that community suffer, and that is what government's role is, it enables frauds like him to continue perpetrating the fraud about climate change
Look
denial.
at DeSantis in Florida when he was a congressman. He voted against Hurricane Sandy relief.
Did he?
Yeah. Then you come down into Hurricane Ian. The entire half the state is flooded, and he's begging for money. And that was as governor. That was sort of his sheepish moment with Biden. I will say,
but what the government guarantees, though, is not that much money. I mean, it's kind of like when if your company goes down, you lose your pension. Well, the government guarantees your pension, but only up to like $40,000 a year. So if you had a $200,000 or $100,000 pension, you're kind of screwed. And this happened in Florida, where there's not enough money from the government to rebuild unless you are independently loaded, right?
Right, and that's what that is. The under and uninsured will be of a certain population, right? Those and the equity issues around abandoning insurance in California are not being reflected adequately. These are not rich people with their homes in Malibu. These are just based on zoning laws and all sorts of other things. People without means have been driven to the most vulnerable areas for obvious reasons. So look, I mean, Biden, to his credit, again, President Biden is trying to do some things with legislation that get to this issue without calling it climate change. So one of the more interesting things that they've done is they are sticking a lot of climate change adaptation money into the Farm Bill, which is clearly going to get Republican votes. They don't call it climate change, but it's lots of money to go to areas in like Kansas, Kentucky, elsewhere that are getting flooded, that are harming farms. Farmers love it. Don't call it climate change. We can berate, we can criticize their hypocrisy, but it's at least a way to try to protect these farms and other areas that where populations may not agree or not, view climate change as woke.
Can I make my point for the third and final time? And I find I'll be brief. The other great example of the fraudulence of this and the government bailing out the deniers is all the people who voted against the infrastructure bill and then went to the ribbon cuttings in their hometown of the millions of dollars that they voted against. We're talking to Juliette Kayyem. Juliette, we're going to ask the same question of John King, your colleague at CNN, in a bit, but I'm so excited about it that I don't want to wait. Okay, Trump's lawyers go to the Justice Department. What experts who are former prosecutors say is that happens right before an indictment's about to be handed down. Combine that with the fact that the grand jury, which has not been in session for quite a while, from what I understand, is being called back into session. So the experts who I trust say those are two signs that indictments, at least on the Mar-a-Lago documents, is imminent. Do you subscribe to that?
Yeah, I think that's right. At least, I mean, I was never a prosecutor. I think that is just the way. Wait, you're having John King on today?
Yeah, I'll be on at
right
1:20.
after I'm like watching him right now. This is so weird. It's like John King. That's what prosecutors say, that is what the timing looks like. His lawyers are getting aggressive. They're starting, you can hear, and Trump is certainly doing it, some narrative about the witch hunt. Ted Cruz and others are already out. So the general defending the president, the general sense is that this is going to be imminent. Just to explain where we are, there's already been one out of New York District Attorney's Office, already one indictment. And then you have in Georgia the fake electors one, which also seems to be on a fast track.
August is what she's talking
right.
about.
So and she is interesting. She's preparing law enforcement in the area for the grand jurors, and then
she urged the judges to not hold any trials during I think it's the first 2 weeks in August for fear there'd be uprisings there too.
And Trump's not delivering on these things in a good way. I mean, in the sense like people, the more people get tired of it. That's a way to end the radicalization that he's been promoting.
Yeah, he's ahead 53 to 22.
Yeah,
ahead of DeSantis,
I know.
I mean,
This is, and then the third piece is the special prosecutor piece, which is the Mar-a-Lago
and the insurrection.
And the insurrection, right? But
separate pieces.
Separate pieces,
yeah.
right? So we think that this one is related to the Mar-a-Lago. And what happened last week, and CNN reported, was that there are contemporaneous notes about Trump knowing the classified status of the information that he was disclosing to some biographers or ghostwriters for
Mark Meadows,
his chief of staff. I guess Mark Meadows wrote a book too. And so what does that mean? It means that he had knowledge of the illegality or impropriety of what he was doing, understood that he was in possession of things that he should not be in possession of, was joking about them. This is inconsistent with what his defense has been all along, which was either I didn't have them or I declassified them.
Well, you know,
so he forgets his lies. I mean, that's one of the interesting things. If you're his lawyer, it's just like, what's your theory of the case? Well, what is he remembering in terms of his lies?
Well, also the greatest, another exclusive from CNN just yesterday, which is so great, is somebody who works for Trump at Mar-a-Lago drains the pool. And I saw a picture. The pool is like the size of the Atlantic.
Yeah.
Drains the pool, and what a coincidence. It floods the room where all the surveillance stuff is kept.
Yeah.
So it may have been destroyed.
Yeah.
And the question is, was it an accident? I don't think so.
No,
or was it an intentional effort to destroy whatever surveillance of the behavior exists on the computers there?
You know, just a word of caution on the imminent indictment.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's been imminent a long time.
It was imminent for like weeks and weeks and weeks.
No, that is true. But I do think that the pace on the Jack Smith, the independent counsel or prosecutor, has picked up in the last 2 weeks, of which people, you know, who are experts in this are saying that kind of activity doesn't occur unless there's been notification to the defense attorneys, to the defendant, and also his opportunity to set the record straight, because that's what they're going to.
Do you know him, by the way? Is he the scariest looking guy like in the history? Do you know Jack Smith?
I do not, but I have to tell you, I want him on my team. I don't want him not on my team.
Well, wasn't there some scuttlebutt about how people saying, look at that picture of him, he looks like an executioner, and maybe we should get a different picture, and he refused to give a different picture.
Well, the executioner one was just because that was that is the outfit that one has to wear in front of the international court. Like, it wasn't like he dresses like that, but still, it was a funny picture.
He wanted to go with the scary photo. I guess that was good with him.
Juliette, I saw you on CNN the other night.
Oh, at the big kids table?
No.
I got to sit. I was in
missed
New York.
That. On which show?
Oh, no, I don't
Which show
remember.
was it?
That was the 10 o'clock.
Of course you remember.
I remember. That was
Who
the 10 o'clock.
Who was the host? Do you know who the host is?
Alison Camerata. Which one?
She almost didn't know her name.
I know.
How
Which
humiliating would have that
I know.
been? No, I saw you called up on
Big
short
kids
notice
table.
when the F-16s
yes, that was short
What's
notice.
the verb? What do you do with F-16s?
Is that your nice way of saying you looked a little frazzled?
No, you looked like you maybe were rushed to get to the... Let's put it that way.
My mom would call it the no lipstick segments.
Well, that's your mother.
Yes.
In any case... Well, it's horrible that four people died in this Cessna.
One of them was a 2-year-old.
But what people are saying is, because I had no idea what was going on with the F-16s and the breaking the sound barrier, whatever. But experts whom I've read in the last 36 hours, I think including you, say that this is really good news for those who are concerned about, are we in a position to protect our country from 9/11 kinds of things? Explain why.
So the post 9/11 training, and some of you who fly to DC a lot will remember this. There were all sorts of rules around what we call the National Capital Region, the NCR, and because of what happened at the Pentagon, one of those, just to take people back, maybe over a decade, was you couldn't stand up in the flight. Do you remember this?
I do remember
the last
this,
30 minutes of the flight, you could not stand up for fear that someone was going to rush it. Those have changed over time, but one of the defense or preparedness aspects was getting NORAD and NORTHCOM, the two entities that control our airspace, ready for any breach. So what happens in and there's all sorts of trainings. The trainings do not go at the speed of what happens in real life because of the sonic boom. It is so. If you listen to what happened on Sunday, it is so loud, so disruptive. There's a video on YouTube of a dog literally wanting to commit suicide. It's so loud, and that's very disturbing to people in DC who live under a lot of threat, January 6th and other things. And so what happened in this case, the exact reasons for it is there's a plane is not en route as it should be. It is notified by civilian air traffic controllers. It's unresponsive. At that stage, you don't know, more likely than not, unresponsive because of something happening in the cabin in terms of air pressure or some...
which is what is believed to have happened here.
Yeah, it's really horrible. And it's very rare. And then the second was something nefarious happening. They don't know that because the guy's unresponsive. So they then start to alert areas that this plane is now errant, like they don't know where it's going. That's what triggered the F-16s to deploy. They would have had the capacity to shoot it down. It went down, and one of the pilots is quoted as yesterday, they'll do a flyby. I mean, they will get this close to you. They will do a flyby, and they saw the pilot slumped over. Yeah, so it's such a tragedy.
What is it, depressurization they think happened in the cabin?
And I don't know why they would think it would happen, but everyone, it's not good. It's
a
not
lack
good,
of oxygen.
It's not a good way to die.
So
and you're conscious of it. It's just a horrible story.
Well, because there was a mother and her 2-year-old daughter.
Yeah, and the father who was left behind, and lots of bad takes on Twitter about this, but. It's just so anyway, that is in the horrible world of something like this, you are testing your systems, and this was what we call a double-blind test, that you think it's real, but it's not real, and they deployed in time.
Okay, so when you're on set in New York, as opposed to one of your mansions that you do Zoom from. Where do they put you up? And I'm serious. Where do they put you up?
I actually stay with my sister.
Oh, but if they did, where would they?
Just across the street, I think. I don't know
but
what
nothing
the hotel.
Particularly ritzy?
This is like a trick question, but I don't even remember.
It's not a trick question.
It's like
You didn't remember who the host was. You don't remember
No,
where
it's
they
like
put
a
you?
Marriot. It's like a Marriott down by Hudson Yards. No, I'm not. I mean, maybe they put I don't know. Maybe they put Sanjay Gupta. They probably put him up at a really nice place. But me, I get the Marriott.
You're a pretty regular kind of thing.
I know. I am.
You
I am
are.
these days, unfortunately. So, why do you ask this very odd question?
No, I'm not. It's not odd. I'm just.
you were curious.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
I'm just interested in how they do that kind of thing.
I don't. You know, when I'm in New York, obviously lots going on to see. And when I'm in New York, because they like people in studio, so it's always fun for me to sit at the table, because otherwise you see me in allegedly one of my mansions. Which
Speaking of the Marriott,
That's right.
is it true that speaking in the Marriott, that the head of CNN is soon going to be staying in a Motel 6? Is that true?
Yeah, I knew that this was leading
is
somewhere.
That gonna
I
happen?
don't know.
Yeah,
All I know is
well, you haven't gotten canned. That's a good thing.
I have not gotten canned. I just, people
Choose
watch
your words
CNN.
carefully.
No,
yes.
I'm just saying, you can see when people watch CNN, they still want it to be reliable. They want it to be the place to go when emergencies, crises, wars, all destruction happens. That's not, fortunately, 24/7, but it's getting close. And so I'm confident, given the talent they have there, that they can find that way. The politics of all this, it's never good for any institution. I've been a part of a lot of them, DHS, Harvard, now CNN. It's never good for an institution to have this much media.
Well, you know what the moral of
period.
the story is, too? Is that years ago, 5 or 6 years ago, there was a reporter from Boylston Magazine wanted to follow me and Marjorie around, and we let our egos go in the way, and we said, sure. And once he finished following us around, we would talk to each other every day saying, what horrible thing is going to be, what horror. We were like sweating bullets, and luckily it was a great piece. He was very kind to us. Lick, you don't have to comment on this. For those who don't know, lets this Atlantic reporter.
And I'm a contributing writer for the Atlantic.
You are,
so
right.
it's like
follow
a
him
funny,
around,
yeah.
and this guy writes a 15,000 word piece.
I know.
Totally eviscerating
Yeah.
the guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I've never met him. I mean, some of all the producers and everyone, as you know, some of the hosts have been replaced. I mean, one thing that I have to say is like you can see the numbers when there's a school shooting, when there's a dam blown up in
on
Ukraine.
the site reporting
when
is the
on
best.
the site they
It's the
can
best.
just deploy the resources. They are
Yeah.
so good at
You're
that,
right.
and it's just figuring out a way in which to get the confidence back in
Well,
by the
it
audience,
also
and
seems that
also the employees.
Some people can see talent, and some people can't. And if you can't, you can't. You can't learn it. And some people have it, and I think that's his problem. He cannot see talent.
Let's see if we can get Juliette fired by the end of the segment.
No.
Go ahead, Juliette.
Well, you're not a host of an evening show.
No. I like some of the host changes he's made.
Yeah.
I will tell you one thing, and so I'm not there. And I
By the way, they dumped some of the guests, so it's not like you were.
Yeah.
You weren't
No,
dumped.
I was
but a
not
bunch of the guests were dumped.
No, I think if he finds a way, if Discovery finds a way, there's enough there to help it find its way. And I'm just definitely, whether I'm with it or not with it in the future, it's so instinctive that we say, did you hear what happened? Let's turn on CNN. There's a reason for that, right? There's a reason, and I think that's the way we will have a path forward. The details of all this stuff, I don't know, but there's so much talent there. Also, one silly thing that he changed, not silly to me, but that may sound silly, is daytime programming used to be truncated into silly hour breaks. So if you were an analyst and you were called because there was, say, a shooting, the 2 to 3 o'clock show would call, and it'd be 2:57, and the press conference would end, and you would be like, and then they have a new show. They're actually starting to treat news that it's not bounded by hours, which is true, and they have that now 9 to 12 show and then 1 to 4 show. I think that's been incredibly successful.
Great.
So we'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens. Nice to see you,
Okay,
Juliette
Juliette.
Kayyem. Thank you so much.
Bye,
Thank you very much,
everyone.
Juliette Kayyem. Juliette Kayyem's latest book, and I love the title. It's true, I do. The Devil Never Sleeps, Learning to Live in an Age of Disasters. How many languages, Juliette? 34? Is that right that it's in? It's in a lot of languages. Anyway, she is, Juliette Kayyem is former Assistant Secretary of Homeland Security under President Barack Obama, faculty chair of the Homeland Security Program at Harvard's Kennedy School of Government. Coming up, we're going to ask you about PDA, public displays of affection. Been a lot of stories about this lately. We want to ask you at 877-301-8970, where is the line between aw, cute, and gross, get a room? 877-301-8970 is the number to call. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We've been streaming online at facebook.com/GBH News and youtube.com/GBH News. And we are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library, where Guster is going to perform at around 1:30.
Trusted, local news. You're listening to 89.7 WGBH, HD1 Boston, online at gbhnews.org. GBH News with NPR. What matters to you.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Brody and Marge. We're live at the library, streaming online at youtube.com/GBH News and facebook.com/GBH News. Guster is beginning to work its way into the library space. They'll be playing and talking to us at about 1:30. Still plenty of time to get here ahead of 2 terrific performances with the Pops tonight and tomorrow night. We're switching some times around to accommodate that Guster's going to play at 1:30 toward the end of the show. So we're opening the lines to ask you about something everybody has an opinion on: PDA's, public displays of affection. Are you all for people making out in the park, sitting on the same side of the table at restaurants so they can fondle each other while they eat fondue? Or are you more of, I don't know, Puritan about things and prefer to keep 6 inches between you and your partner to make room for, what is it, the Holy Ghost?
The Holy Ghost, that's
The Holy
right.
Ghost. Our number is 877-301-8970 to call or text. So where are you on this, Marjorie?
I don't know that we have to go quite so far as Megan Fox and Machine Gun Kelly, who are sticking their tongues out very wide.
That's a hell of a photograph. No, it is.
And fondling each other's tongues in a picture. But I love to see people walking down the street holding hands. Or I love to see, somebody mentions in this story, a young woman, or I suppose older woman too, hand in the back pocket of her boyfriend's jeans. I like that. I like someone's arm inside somebody else, or someone's arm around
But
somebody.
those are modest PDAs.
Yeah.
Those are not intense
Well,
PDAs.
I don't think you have to look at, someone putting their hands where they wouldn't be normally out on the street kind of thing.
I'm not talking about the hand in somebody else's crotch, but they're no, I'm not. I mean, that's what you're intimating.
Yeah, that's what Donald Trump got in trouble
But there's
for.
a knee, there's a thigh, there's a whatever. I have to
So
say,
where
one
are
of the
you?
things.
Where are you?
Well, I can't explain this, so don't ask me to.
Okay.
I find it odd. I'm not rendering judgment. I find it odd when I get to a restaurant and 2 people at a 4-seater table are sitting on the same side. It's endearing and it's actually, I am rendering a judgment. It's great, but it feels odd when you see. Do you not feel that way or not?
Well, I think it's fine if you're boyfriend and girlfriend. It's problematic if one of them is the boss.
Well, what are we talking about?
Well, I think there are a lot of bosses that have done that kind of thing back in the day. You know what I mean?
Who are we talking about in particular? It was like Bill Clinton was at a restaurant with
No, I
Monica
think
Lewinsky?
a lot of young women went out to lunch with their boss.
Did
the
you
boss
have to
sat on
do
the
that?
same side of the table. I have no comment on that.
Wait a second. So you were taken out, excuse me, you were taken out by a boss at the Herald, and the boss
Not
sat
at
in
the
same...
Herald. Not at the Herald.
By the way, for those
And
who
we're
are not
going into
faithful
this.
viewers of this show, every time Marjorie refuses to make eye contact means she's trying to avoid the topic.
At the Boston
Look
Herald.
me in the... Where was it? Boston
I'm not telling
Magazine.
you. It was someplace else.
Look at me.
I'm not
Look at
telling
me.
you.
Look at me. Boston Magazine.
No comment.
So it was obviously Boston Magazine.
wasn't Boston Magazine
Look up
either.
who the editor of Boston Magazine was when she was there, and we'll check out who it was. 877-301-8970. By the way, we're not talking about sexual harassment, even though Marjorie is. That obviously is inappropriate.
Now,
and I don't have to say it. We're talking about people who are really into each other doing a public display of affection thing. That's what we're talking about here.
Yes, and there's a lot of questioning. I did not know this, Jim.
What's that?
About Jennifer Lopez and Ben Affleck's
Well, what are they doing?
apparent lack of public displays of affection.
What do you mean,
apparent
like at the
lack
Oscars
of
or whatever it was?
chemistry. Well, I guess a lot of people talk about this, that they don't seem to show much affection to each other. People that do show a lot of affection, who's big on kissing and public displays of affection?
No.
Prince Harry and
With
Meghan
Meghan?
Markle.
I didn't know that, actually.
They're always holding each other and kissing, and I think it's kind of cute.
You know, another couple that doesn't do public displays of affection is Trump and Melania, because she's usually in another city. 877-301-8970.
She batted his hand away.
I do very well.
Yeah, that was pretty good. And how about when you see a little old couple, they're like in their 80s, and they're maybe about 4 feet tall, and they're walking down the street holding
I've told
hands.
you that when I was doing representing
Legal
tenants in the
services,
South
yes.
Bronx, Mr. Jerusalem, was 84 and about 4'11", and Pauline Gentilomo, who was also 80 years old, or 80-something, also about 4'10". They met in my waiting room,
Yeah.
my office
Isn't that
in the
great?
South Bronx. And one night I'm driving from a rent strike at midnight in one of the most dangerous sections of the South Bronx. I see in the distance, it's totally true, it was so beautiful, under a streetlight, 2 people walking. I'm saying, what kind of people are doing this? It's a dangerous neighborhood. And I drive up next to them, and it's Gentilomo and
There you go.
Jerusalem holding hands, going for a midnight
So,
walk
that's a
on
public-
Washington Street in the South Bronx. That's
Public
a PDA
display of affection, and you liked it.
I liked it.
Okay.
877-301-8970 is our number. Let's start with Mary in Boston. Hi, Mary. Welcome.
Hi. Jim, you've brought up a couple of times people sitting on the same side of the table when they're in the restaurant. But my husband and I do it all the time, only because there's nothing worse than sitting in a seat facing my husband and a wall in back of him.
That's a good point.
So he's looking around the restaurant. I don't know what he's looking at. You know, we're talking, but we always sit on the same side because we want to enjoy the restaurant and what's going on around us.
I think that's very romantic, too, Mary, sitting on the same side, thigh to thigh kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Well, we can, still talk and we can see what's going on. So that's what we do.
That's a good explanation. Thank you very much for the call. So Jamie has done some research. The editor we think it was of Boston Magazine is dead. Is that who it was?
No, I'm not going to tell you.
Well, just say if he's alive or dead.
The editor of Boston Magazine?
No, the editor who sat on the same side of the table with you.
I don't know. That's why I'm
That's
not
a
going
lie,
there. I'm not going there.
Is he alive or dead?
Jim. I'm not going there.
Give me his name. I'll look him up. I'll tell you if he's alive or dead. Why can't you? I don't understand why you can't go there. It was like 30 years ago.
You know what? Can we move on, please?
No, we cannot, actually.
Okay, well,
We
I
cannot
am
move
moving
on.
Let's go, moving on to Todd in the car.
By the way,
Thank you
if
for calling.
anybody, Todd, hold it. If anybody knows who Marjorie was sitting at the same side of the table with, who was her boss at Boston Magazine, can you
believe
please,
this?
we'll jump you to the top of the list when you
Okay.
call. 877-301-8097. I'm going to get her to tell us.
Todd in the car, thank you for calling.
Okay, do you know who it was or
Hey.
not, Todd?
He does not.
Don't. I'd love to hear it, though. But
So would
I'm
I.
in Attleboro. So I've called you guys, this is my fourth call. So I'm
Great.
excited to
Great.
get through.
What's up?
But I'm going to come through because it's Pride Month and I'm married
Yep.
with my husband. But if we commute in on the MBTA we live in Attleboro, I'm not comfortable, giving them a kiss goodbye in a crowded train station.
Is
and
it
stuff
really?
Like that. And it's just yeah, I'm not comfortable about it. I don't think he is either, and he's Middle Eastern.
A lot of people in these stories that are gay don't feel comfortable, or interracial couples
not a
don't
safe
feel
space.
comfortable. Yeah, I think
mean, we're fine in P-Town holding hands, or we just took the the Pride kickoff Boston Harbor cruise on Sunday. A lot of fun. A little bit too much PDA. So but it was fun. But in general, in public, being gay, I'm not comfortable in general. And maybe it's partially me saying, I shouldn't give a damn, but I don't want to deal with the negativity or the potential for any negativity.
That's
Todd,
horrible,
Todd, you're not
actually.
alone because
Yeah,
one of
that's
these stories, I think it's the one from Forbes, talks about research showing minority groups, as I just said, interracial couples or same-sex partners often feel uncomfortable with PDAs because of dangers of a social stigma or actual physical danger, being harassed. So, I mean, it's a legitimate fear.
Under the radar.
Yeah, exactly.
One under the radar thing I picked up was this female couple kissed when they were golfing. A woman didn't like it. It was in Texas outside of Houston. Just caught it in the news. And the woman basically called the cops on them, and the cops were friends. She didn't call 911. And the two women were thrown in jail overnight.
Well, that's really a wonderful story. Well, Todd, we're so sorry and hope it changes and hope it changes soon. Todd, thank you for the call. PDA made an appearance in a famous episode of Seinfeld. Here's what happened when Jerry and his then girlfriend got too close in the soup line.
What are you going to get?
I'll decide at the last minute.
Well, you better decide, sister. You're on deck. Sheila.
Hey!
Uh-oh.
What is this? You're kissing in my line? Nobody kisses in my line.
I can kiss anywhere I want to.
You just got yourself a soup.
How dare you? Come on, Jerry, we're leaving. Jerry?
Do I know you?
That was obviously the soup Nazi for the uninitiated. 877-301-8970.
This is from Nadia. No public displays of affection, please, because if I'm not getting any, I don't need to see that you are.
That's a good one. Let's go to Gardner, where Annie is on the phone. Annie, welcome to the show. Hello.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. I have a comment about non-romantic public displays of affection, which is when, in Europe especially, I've seen women friends and even male friends just walking along down the street through a park with their arms entwined.
Yeah, I love
and
that.
I think it's really beautiful.
Yeah.
And I rarely see it in the States. Only my German friends and European friends do that, but American folks not so much. And I think it's really sweet.
I couldn't agree with you more. I notice it and remark on it every time I'm over there, and it's great. And it's warm and beautiful and connecting and all that sort of stuff. Annie, thanks for the thanks for the call.
Now, some of these pieces also point out that this can be a cause for friction in relationships if one half of the couple likes public displays of affection and the other one doesn't.
Well, don't you think they worked that out? I mean,
well, apparently this couple broke up over it. They talked about how one liked it and one didn't, and that was the end of the romance.
So, Teresa and Maynard, do you know who was sitting on the same side of the table with Marjorie when she worked for Boston Magazine?
I wasn't working. It wasn't when I was working for Boston Magazine.
Whoa, wait a second. Where was it? First of all, I know you're lying. It was Boston Magazine.
I'm saying nothing further about this.
Well,
I never should have brought it up.
Well, no, yes, you should. And you don't bring something up on the radio and disappoint the listeners by not finishing the story.
Teresa would like to talk, Jim.
You would?
Yes.
What do you want to say, Teresa?
Yeah, first of all, I think you should leave her alone.
Thank you.
She's
Thank
not
you.
going to tell you. She shouldn't have to tell you.
Could you get rid of those people, please? Thank you.
I am personally in favor of PDAs.
Okay.
I don't think we see enough of it. And I don't care if people are hopping on the beach. People don't have to look.
Excuse me. Wait a second. You don't care if people are humping on the beach? Is that what you said?
That's what I said.
That is what you said. You don't care.
That's right. Good for them, Teresa. What the heck?
Well, I think humping on the beach is another level of PDAs. Would you not agree? Teresa, that was an excellent call.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, okay, I'm sorry to interrupt
You can have an impromptu lesson in sex education for the kids.
Exactly.
Right, bring them over.
Okay.
This is what you're going to do when you grow up.
So, Teresa, thank you.
877-301-8970. Jim from Rockport, thank you for calling.
How do you feel about humping on the beach, Jim?
Well, let me tell you. Once in a while on Good Harbor Beach, you'll see people trying to, I don't know, call it dry humping under a towel.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad I brought it up. Yeah, okay. What are you calling?
Very inappropriate.
Yeah,
very inappropriate.
Okay.
I almost went over and said, hey, what the heck are you doing?
Yeah, but you didn't.
No, I didn't.
Okay,
but
fine.
I think the younger generation thinks they can do all this stuff anywhere and anytime.
Well, there you go. That's a great point, Jim, and from Rockport. Thank you for making it. We have some text messages that say the same thing. It's cute when the couple is 20. It's cringy when they're 50. And then listen to this one.
I don't agree with that at all. You know, getting back to Jim, thanks for the call. That was sort of good. The woman who called about people just holding each other with their arms on each other who are not lovers.
That's right.
In Europe, I've said this to you before, one of the great parts of Italy is you walk down the street, and I don't care how old the couple is, same sex, whatever it is.
See, mothers and daughters.
It is one of the sexiest kinds of, no, I'm talking about people who are together.
Oh, okay.
No matter what the age, it is really beautiful and really, it's great.
My friend saw a couple having sex in a Home Depot parking lot in the middle of the day on Mother's Day.
Yeah.
I think that's one end of the spectrum, the unacceptable end. There you go.
Teresa, what do you think about that? Who wrote that, by the way?
Okay, this is from Megan from Gloucester. I work in a restaurant. She didn't sign it. I work in a restaurant, or he didn't sign it. We call people in the restaurant same size sitters. They are always annoying, sometimes gross. That's Megan from Gloucester. Wow.
I don't think it's gross. It's
the next texter points out that Jesus and the apostles were all on the same side of the table.
That's a really good point. That's a really good point.
At the old Last Supper there.
At the old Last Supper.
Yes,
Pat
that's
and Cape
right.
Cod, what's your deal? Hi, Pat.
Hey, hello, good afternoon.
And to you, too.
So when I heard you ask that question, I immediately went to a Joni Mitchell song.
Which one?
And it's from the, in France They Kiss on Main,
Kiss on Main Street.
In France They Kiss on Main Street, La Mora, mama, not cheap display.
What is it?
Her lyrics.
What is it again? I couldn't hear it.
What's the line again? I should know. What is the line again?
In France They Kiss on Main Street, La Mora, not cheap display.
Yeah.
Okay, in France They Kiss on Main Street. That's a good one, Pat.
Well, she was the best, too.
Yes.
And is the
From
best.
Joni Mitchell, Court and Spark in 1974.
Pat, thank you. We really appreciate it. Do you remember it was the 50th anniversary of Blue about a year ago?
That's
Remember
right.
that?
The texters are texting Jim.
About what, humping on the beach?
Leave Marjorie alone.
No, I mean, I don't care. I mean, that's your relatives, or it's the guy who was sitting next to you on the damn whatever it is. Do me one favor. Here, I'll make you a deal.
Yep.
If you tell me what publication it was, I'll stop asking you who it was.
I'm not saying a word.
Jamie, do you know what publication it is?
He does not.
Can you try to find out?
No one knows.
Well, I know someone knows. What are you doing there? You just sitting there?
I'm
What are
reading
you
the
doing?
text.
Oh, okay.
I'm reading the
Do you
text.
have any texts you'd
That's
like
what
to
I'm
read?
supposed to do. Well,
What do you-
why don't you keep talking? I'll let you know
I'll
if I
talk
have
to
a
a
good
caller.
one.
Here's Dan
Dan
from Plymouth.
Thank
What's
you for
your
calling.
deal, Dan? Hello.
Jim and Marjorie, first of all, I love your show.
Thanks.
Listen to you all the time.
That's
Thank
nice.
you.
Recently retired and have plenty of time to listen to you guys, and I love it.
Thank you.
Jim, I just wanted to point out the actor playing with Jerry Seinfeld in that scene is George Stephanopoulos' wife.
Is
No.
it really?
Alexandra Wentworth.
I didn't even know that was his. You mean the woman who's in line with him?
Yes.
Wow.
Schmoopy. He calls her. They call each other Schmoopy.
They do?
Episode.
That was news
Yeah.
to me, I have to say. I didn't even know she was an actress.
The whole episode is about them showing public displays of affection, and the George character and his girlfriend, George starts mimicking them to make fun of them, but then it turns out Jerry breaks up with Alexandra, whatever her name was in the show. But yeah.
So where are you? Forget Stephanopoulos' wife. Where are you on the PDA issue there, Dan in Plymouth?
So I laugh when you folks brought this subject up because my wife and I will be married 41 years next week.
Wow,
Congratulations.
yeah.
And people comment to us all the time that we're like newlyweds.
That's great.
Oh.
That's really
Because we enjoy, we're not making out in public. We're not doing those other things that people are talking about on the beach. But, we hold hands and we'll give each other a little peck. But the best part of it is that my children, who are 35, 33, and 25, are horrified anytime my wife and I, just even a little peck on the cheek or a hug in public. They recoil in horror that we would do that.
Well, I'm with you and your wife, and screw the kids, Dan.
Well,
I
think Dan raises a great
Dan,
point,
thanks.
though. A lot of people don't like to do it in front of their family, including their children, even when their children are grown up. So there seems to be kind of a we don't want to do this in front of the kids kind of thing.
Who says that?
Going on. Some texters and some people in these stories have said that too. And then Virginia, who says she used to own a restaurant, she doesn't like people sitting on the same side of the table either. She had a customer who requested a private room, I thought, for a business meeting, only to see him groping his lunch mate, which also made serving the meal very difficult.
I bet it did. We didn't think this is where it would end up, but it did. Dan, thank you very much for the call, and keep on doing what you're doing with your wife of 41 years. We have time for one more, Marjorie.
Okay, one more. Let's go to Lauren in Tewksbury. Thank you for calling, Lauren.
Hey there, Lauren.
Hi, how are you?
We're excellent. Thank you for asking. What's up?
So my husband and I were at Logan getting ready to pick up our daughter, waiting in the cell phone lot. And we look next to us, and this car's got nobody in it. So
I think we know where this is going.
Somebody
Go
just
ahead.
parked. Then the car was rocking and rolling. And then a minute later, there were two people in the front seat.
How did that happen? Well, that's not exactly a public display of affection. It's a non-public
That's right.
display of affection.
That's
Isn't it,
right.
Lauren?
Yes.
So what'd you think of it, Lauren?
Yeah,
What'd you think?
So that was we were laughing.
Yeah.
Then I was texting all my friends going, hey, guess what's going on next door?
Got to do what you got to do.
You either got to say goodbye real quick or you got to say hello real quick. Or...
Got it. It's a very moving story, so to speak, Lauren. Thank you for sharing that
We're
with
going
us.
to end this with
Appreciate it.
Ron from Westport,
What
who
do you
says,
say?
I like seeing young queer people express affection in public because it was an option that was not available to me when I was young with any safety.
But how about Todd saying that when he's riding the commuter rail with his husband, he feels constrained in his ability. I mean, that's pretty sad.
That's what they said
I know.
in a lot of these stories.
And we're number 2. Remember, we were just talking to Christopher Muther. Massachusetts, after Vermont, is allegedly the most LGBTQ-friendly place for travelers, but apparently not for domestic travelers.
Okay, we are moving on because we're going to talk up next is CNN's John King for the latest political news out of Washington, D.C. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We're going to have Guster playing for us in just a few minutes. We're at the Boston Public Library. We're streaming online at facebook.com/GBH News and youtube.com/GBH News.
Altogether, just anything.
Yeah, go.
3, 2, 1, go. Improvise. Let's play. Can you turn the amp on, bro? Switches right in the back.
You gotta turn it up.
Yeah.
Shining like a word of art, hanging
guys good?
Trying to get a closer view. On my satellite, you're riding with me tonight. Passenger side, light in the sky, always the first star.
Sometimes something will come up that will later be changed, and that can help that social injustice that currently exists.
The GBH News Center for Investigative Reporting.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. I'm Jim Browdy. She is Marjorie Egan. We're streaming online at youtube.com/GBH News, facebook.com/GBH News. Guster was just rehearsing. A lot of people are really excited here, and on the text, it's pretty clear. They'll be playing for us and talking to us in about 10 minutes or so. First, we're joined on Zoom by CNN's chief national correspondent, John King, host of Inside Politics, weekdays at noon. Hello there, John King.
As he should be, just the warm-up act. I'm here.
Exactly. You're the opening act, John. That is correct.
So John King, we were talking with Juliette Kayyem, who does a lot of political analysis for us, and she was saying that because Trump's lawyers met with the Department of Justice and because the grand jury has been reconvened on this documents case on Mar-a-Lago, that I hate to use the word imminent again for indictment, because we had an imminent indictment for like weeks last time around, but what do you think is happening with that case?
I do think there are a number of things that we have seen and things that we know are about to happen that do lead to, I think, informed analysis that at least they're at a decision point. Number one, Jack Smith himself attending the meeting with Trump lawyers yesterday. They came into the Justice Department. Number two, the Washington grand jury that has been hearing the classified documents case meeting again. And number three, and the legal analysts I've talked to think this is perhaps even more significant, the decision to present evidence to a federal grand jury in Florida, because there are jurisdiction questions. If you're going to raise, let's say you're going to present potential charges, ask a grand jury to present an indictment about conduct that happened at Mar-a-Lago. If you do that with a Washington grand jury, any good lawyer will challenge the venue.
Okay.
Say that you don't have jurisdiction, that Washington, D.C. doesn't have jurisdiction over even federal crimes that happen in the state of Florida. So to me, the combination of those things, including the fact that they're going to have a federal grand jury in Florida hear evidence, tells me that they're thinking through all of the legal questions. And why would you be thinking through all of these legal questions, including where should we file these charges? Where do we need the grand jury to be to present these charges? You wouldn't be thinking about things like that unless you were at decision point, right?
You know, John, one question. We talked with Julia, and we've talked before, I think, with you about how the prosecutor in Fulton County in Georgia is preparing law enforcement and the courts for release of indictment or indictments sometime in early August, and talking about bulking up law enforcement. Is there concern in Washington about what happens when the DOJ, through Jack Smith or Merrick Garland, makes their announcements? For example, the most imminent one seems to be the Mar-a-Lago documents thing. Is there preparation for that on the law enforcement side, I assume?
There's no question that political reaction, including and possibly, protests, is part of these conversations. I don't want to get the cart out too far in front of the horse here. We don't know what's going to happen. And to Marjorie's point, there have been people in the past who have said, aha, here it is, and it either doesn't materialize or something materializes that is not what was expected. So I think we need to be careful and follow the facts. But yes, you raise a very key point. Fonnie Willis, the district attorney, the prosecutor in Fulton County, has said, this is what I'm going to make my decision. And I understand all the interest in this case, and there could be protests, so law enforcement should be on alert. Look, I hope that we would process these things, and people have every right to free speech. They have every right to say they love what just happened. They don't like what just happened. They have every right to go into the streets and either protest, against or cheer in favor. I think, Jim, it's just a fact that the memories of January 6th just linger over any of these possible conversations. Again, you hope and you pray that day or anything like that day never happens again. But you would be foolish if you were dancing around or approaching of these issues or any of these issues and these big players in any way. You would not be very smart if you didn't at least think of the possibility.
I should say what's interesting is the Newsfeed Cafe is pretty packed, and I'm looking out at the audience. No one is looking at me and Marjorie. They're all looking to our side at a bunch of guys who just walked in. I don't really know what's going on. So Marjorie was thrilled when the governor of California referred to her favorite governor, that'd be Ron DeSantis, as a small, pathetic man. And he is suggesting, and I am totally with him, that DeSantis, not unlike when he shipped Texas migrants, not Florida, Texas migrants to Martha's Vineyard, may have violated federal kidnapping laws. Where is this thing going, or where is it likely to go?
Well, there's a lot of finger pointing here, and we don't have confirmation from Florida yet that the Governor DeSantis or his administration or his people in any way were responsible for the migrants brought to Sacramento. That is what the California authorities believe. That is what the California Attorney General has said. We haven't seen the documentation yet. So again, as this old school, former AP reporter, dinosaur, let's let the facts develop. But there's no question. Look, there's a huge political fight now between Newsom and DeSantis. It probably, I don't know if this is sad or good, benefits both men, if you will, with their constituencies. If you're Ron DeSantis and the liberal governor of California is after you while you run for president, you love that. If you're Gavin Newsom and you think you have a future not only as the governor of California, but as a national Democrat, you're in a fight with Ron DeSantis, it's good for you. The only point I would make about this, Jim, is that as they fight out the politics of this and they try to figure out exactly what happened with these latest flights and the flights in the past, is there are hundreds or thousands of migrants who are being treated as political pawns, and the immigration issue has been intractable for way too many years. But there are human beings, whatever your views on immigration, whether you think it should have been turned away, whether you think they should be deported, whether you think they should be welcomed, whatever your views on immigration, there are human beings and families and children who are being treated as political pawns as the politicians lob grenades over this.
We're talking with John King from CNN. John, a lot of people have thrown their hat into the GOP ring this week. Chris Christie, Sununu up in New Hampshire, says he's not going to come in. Pence is coming in soon. I saw the town meeting this week you guys had on CNN with Nikki Haley, very, very conservative woman. Her politics aren't my politics, but I thought she was a very talented politician. She's a good-looking woman, not that that should matter, but it does. And she was pretty good telling stories about taking down the Confederate flag in South Carolina, about being an Indian woman in a black-white neighborhood. So I don't know I know she's very low in the polls, but for me, she was quite impressive.
She is a very impressive communicator. There were a couple things in that town hall that, probably broke the fact check machine. One of them I thought was a curious connection of, teen suicide or teens considering suicide to transgender girls who are about 1% of the population. Republicans are obsessed with this. I'm not saying it's not a legitimate issue, especially, participation in sports, public facilities and things like that, that parents and coaches and communities and school committees have to talk about. I'm not taking it away as a legitimate issue. Do candidates for president need to be talking about it? I think we could have a debate about that. But she is no doubt an impressive communicator. Chris Christie, who gets into the race tonight, is a very impressive sort of prosecutorial communicator. I think the question, and it's the value of these town halls, whether they're CNN town halls or Chris Christie's doing one at St. Anselm's up the road from you guys tonight in New Hampshire, as he announces, the value of these town halls is transparency. People get to see the candidates, like them, don't like them, have questions about them. My biggest question is the Republican primary electorate open to listening? Are they looking for new people, or are they happy with Trump? Or if you're not happy with Trump, you're happy with DeSantis as plan B. Because you look at any of the polling right now, it's Trump on top, DeSantis about half of what Trump has, and then everybody else in single digits. And so we got time. We have 7 months till anybody votes. Are Republicans willing to open their minds? Will any of the legal stuff we just talked about with Trump, will any of the immigration and other scrutiny on Governor DeSantis, is there anything that will get Republican voters to say, okay, I'm okay with this guy, but I'm going to think and I'm going to look? That's the challenge. If you're Christie, if you're Pence, if you're Haley, if you're anybody else, we'll have 10 candidates in the Republican field by the end of the week.
John, I should know the answer to this, so my apologies in advance. Chris Christie was essentially Donald Trump's lapdog. At the end of the campaign, he led his transition. This is the part I should know. What is the thing or things that Christie identifies as when he concluded, I can't take Trump anymore? What happened that gave him this epiphany?
Well, there were some disagreements during the transition, number one, about who should come into the cabinet and things like that. And Chris Christie came to the opinion that Donald Trump does not care about policy. Donald Trump cares about Trump, and did some personnel things that he thought were in support of Trump, not in support of a Republican agenda. And then he would say the Trump presidency. Everything from, the 5 a.m. tweets. Remember back when we used to talk about those all the time, guys? The 3 a.m. and the 5 a.m. tweets and the COVID response. He says Donald Trump just proved that he's not capable of managing the government and that he has no philosophical, ideological policy moorings. He just gets up every day and says what's best for Trump. I'll go back to the same point. You make a key point. Is he a credible messenger? Is he a more credible messenger against Trump because he was once in the fold? Or is he a less credible? That's for Republican voters to decide. I think that's the same challenge Pence has. How do voters view him as someone who's broken from Trump or somebody who was Velcro to Trump for a while? But Christie is a very powerful communicator. He can prosecute a case. My biggest question is, and he's in New Hampshire, not Iowa, for a reason. He's not the candidate of evangelical farm state conservatives, but he does believe in New Hampshire. We're undeclared, and you have a different brand, a more libertarian brand of Republicanism in New Hampshire. He believes there's an opening there. He didn't do very well in 2016. We'll see.
John, we only have a minute left because for a rare moment, you are the opening act today, with no disrespect, as you know.
More than happy to be the warm-up.
I know you are. We've been reading a lot, including Marjorie and I both read the 15,000-word piece in The Atlantic about your relatively new boss. We read about dissension. I don't know what you can say and not say, but how is CNN at this moment under the embattled, one of my favorite words, Chris Licht?
CNN will be fine. I don't talk publicly about my employer or my company in a bad way, because that's not the way I was raised. My boss has a very tough job. My boss acknowledged in a conversation with the staff yesterday, he has made some mistakes and he's going to work even harder. He has a very tough job and I have great empathy for him. I am not a fan of some of the people I work with who are privately trashing their company and trashing their boss. I don't think it's the way to do business. Do I agree with everything Chris Licht has done? No. Does Chris Licht know that? Yes. Because his door is open and he always answers the phone. Does he agree with everything I think? No. Welcome to a professional work environment. He's my boss. I wish him the best. He has acknowledged he needs to do some things better, and I hope to support him as he does that.
Well, we wish you the best. John King, it's great to see you. See you again next week. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much, John King.
Thank you, guys. Have a great final act here.
Yes, we will. We have been speaking with CNN's chief national correspondent, John King from Dorchester, of course, and he hosts Inside Politics, weekdays at noon on CNN. He's with us every week, and we're very grateful he is. Okay, we are going to end the show now with a live music performance by the band Guster, ahead of two shows with the Boston Pops. We're so glad they're with us. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library, and we are streaming online at facebook.com/GBH News and youtube.com/GBH News.
Tell him. My joke with people is they say, well, what do you want to know about? I say, I want to know about everything so I can decide which things I must pay attention to. Because the things I never hear about are the things I know I can't write.
Trusted local news with NPR, GBH 89.7.
Absolutely happy to hear from anybody.
What matters to you.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan live at the Boston Public Library, streaming online at youtube.com/GBH News and facebook.com/GBH News. Well, here's what you've been waiting for. From Tufts University to the Boston Pops and tons of places in between, our next guests are the acclaimed indie rock outfit Guster. They're joining us ahead of two shows, tonight and tomorrow, Boston Symphony Hall with our friend Keith Lockhart and the Boston Pops. I'm just told tickets are sold out for both nights, so there may be singles. I don't know, bso.org/pops. But in addition, this August, they're hosting their 5th annual 3-day On the Ocean Festival in Portland, Maine. And during the show today, we got an email from the BSO saying on June 12th, tickets are available for their performing this summer at the Great Tanglewood. They're here right now at the Boston Public Library studio. Ryan Miller and Adam Gardner, it's great to see you again. Nice to see you both.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming back. So Jim just said that the shows are sold out. Good for you, not good for people that were still trying to get there. But what are people going to see tonight at the Boston Pops with you guys?
Guster with the Boston Pops.
Okay.
Well, could you,
good,
you know,
good job.
Does he conduct you, or how does it work? Does Keith up there with a baton?
No, I mean they have a situation that they have to do. They have a chart. They've got notes, and it's like an aircraft carrier. So once we start, if we can start together, there's a good chance we'll finish together. Not guaranteed, but then so Keith is in charge of all the other people, and we try and do our thing, and then Brian, the drummer, and Keith have this weird mind meld where he tries to keep up with our little tempo swings, and then hopefully, the whole goal is that we start and end at the same time.
Okay.
Yeah, I get the sense from this discussion here and the fact that you're probably the only musical group we've ever had here who didn't come hours earlier to test the sound system and practice. That's not your thing?
Practicing? No, definitely not.
It doesn't appear.
Practicing is not our thing.
Can we talk about this in like 15 minutes after we do the two songs to see how we do?
So you just do the deal. So speaking of you, let's talk about this. I think I got this sort of half-assed. You did something like beat up the former mayor of Providence. Is that correct, Ryan?
Wait, no. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Wait, you don't remember that night?
What, Buddy
I have like 12
I think
texts,
his
not
lawyer
Buddy Cianci.
told him not to talk about it.
Yes, I do know what you're talking about.
Well, how could you forget what I'm talking about?
Well, I don't know. There's a lot of Mayor of Providence
You've beaten
stories.
up in the past, yes.
Been around
so
the
what
block.
happened exactly?
A guy hit our bus when we were playing at the Columbus Theater in Providence. Like a guy, his car hit our bus, and we came out, and then it got into this. I can't say the G word, but I want to say the Goomba energy, and it was a lot of, you got my hit my car, and then it turned out it was the mayor of Providence, and there was this whole kerfuffle, and then it would diffuse, and at the end of the day, I saw him down the street, and he's like, bro, and I'm like, bro, he's like, I'm sorry, man. I'm like, I'm sorry. We hugged, and it was awesome.
That's a beautiful
It was
story,
a very
actually.
Providencian story.
It really is.
Wait a minute. Who was it?
I don't remember.
No
it was
idea.
another mayor of Providence
Okay,
that
another
wanted
mayor.
to kick
We all
our
know
butt.
Buddy Cianci, but he's no longer with us.
Okay, so Adam, can we
sadly.
get back to the Pops? You got this. Is not a first. You did the Omaha something.
Yeah, symphony.
Was that a first for you kind of thing? I mean, playing with like an orchestra kind of
the
thing?
Boston Pops were our first.
Am I talking to him or am I talking to you?
School.
I like it.
What is the deal?
This whole thing started with Boston Pops
it
in
did?
2005. Yeah.
Oh.
So
How'd that
came
come
full
about?
circle.
Are you
How
like
did that
friendly
come
with?
about?
How did that come about?
Boston.
Dalton, Boston, Keith.
Yeah.
I mean, well, because it was the first time we ever thought we could do, and maybe this had been happening with rock bands and orchestras a little bit.
Remember Keith wrote us that email though. He said he was the young conductor at the time coming into this. This was 18 years ago. And was recognizing like, hey, we need to bring youth into the symphony. Let's partner with a Boston band that can bring young people, meaning like 40-year-olds.
Right.
So considering you were Tufts guys, I assume that was pretty exciting. I mean, you've done a million. I mean, that was great, right?
Elaborate on that. People may not know that this you guys have all been together, at least some of you, since Tufts. I mean, that's pretty unusual to last this long as a band, is it not?
Adam just turned 50.
Whoa. Okay.
And we all met.
Look fabulous.
And we met when we were 18, like
That is
down the road.
incredible.
Yeah.
And we never stopped being a band. I mean, we kept making records, and I talked to them all a lot, like every day for a long time.
We still like each other.
Yeah,
That
but,
is
but that
amazing,
is
actually.
unusual. I mean, people get married, they have families, they get divorced, they move, they go to across the country. I mean, how's this work?
Well, it was kind of funny, kind of in context. So this was our first ever orchestra show 18 years ago, and then Keith walked in yesterday, and I don't know if he said this, but in my mind, he was like, "Oh, time is a cruel mistress." He was like, looked at us, and he was like his own life flashed before his eyes, and I was like, "Oh, right," because there's a little bit of storytelling around this because this was the first one we did. We haven't really seen them, and we were supposed to do this COVID, this has been delayed, but we haven't seen each other in 18 years, and we're all kind of like World War II vets. We're going on. It's like, oh, you remember O'Malley? And he went down over whatever.
His exact words were, "Where did youth go?" That's what
Yeah,
he said.
no
So
kidding.
did youth
Better
go.
than what
we
I
all
said.
asked that.
So I was wrong about the Pops. You ever been to Tanglewood before? Did I miss that too?
No.
We have played there.
I don't. I was
Wait a second.
Magical.
Brian says you
Magical.
haven't,
I
and
don't
Adam
remember.
says you have.
This is how it works.
No, that's
Between
not-
all of us, we remember things.
Brian
Brian's
says
got
yes.
the best
So
memory.
it's 2-1. So you probably did.
Brian said yes.
What
we
was
did.
that?
We was with Bare Naked Ladies.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
Oh, we
That
had
was
what's
awesome.
his
Brian
face.
says no, it wasn't.
Stephen what's his face sang here a couple of weeks ago.
Stephen Page.
Stephen, what's his face?
Stephen
He's my
Page.
favorite
He was,
ex-member
no, he
of
was
Bare
great
Naked
actually.
Ladies.
He was
great.
terrific.
He was
This is going
absolutely terrific.
great.
Obviously,
It's going-
it's
it's
an
going-
indelible
Brian,
experience.
Yeah.
Do you really not remember that you didn't remember the Providence mayor? Do you really not remember that you were at Tanglewood, or you BS?
I think I've been there, but I don't remember playing there.
Oh, come on. It's okay. I don't
my
remember half of
God.
my
It's a
life,
lot of
Brian, so I'm
shows,
with
man.
you.
A lot of
You know, I
shows.
don't remember what's
Wait, can
going
I
on.
ask you guys a question?
Sure.
Certainly.
This is crazy. You guys are so good at this. I'm
We
just
are?
sitting there. Like, do you have to have an opinion on everything?
Everything.
Yes, we
That's
do.
crazy.
Everything. We do.
It's like, oh, PDA,
Everything.
that's easy. And then it's like, oh, Chris Christie, what happened and why he broke with Trump? You're like, wait, how do you guys know all this
It's
stuff?
amazing.
Did you read the 15,000 word in the Atlantic
As a
about
matter of
Chris
fact,
Licht?
I did.
Wow.
Did you?
guys- I started it.
You really did.
Yeah, I really did.
Were you ever at Tanglewood?
Yes.
Exactly.
Keep going.
Now, can
I'm
we?
on it. This
Hey,
is like
Adam,
a game
before you
show.
guys play, because people really want to hear you play, even though they like you talking. We love what you're doing on the side. We talked about this. Explain
Yes.
to people what this reverb.
nonprofit.
Speaking of Bare Naked Ladies, they were one of the buyers in early on.
Yeah.
Tell people what reverb is that you and your wife do on
Yeah,
the side.
so Lauren Sullivan, my wife, and I started Reverb in 2004 as an environmental organization that works within the music industry, harnessing the power and reach of music as an industry, changing the industry to be more sustainable, but also using it as an incredible mouthpiece for environmental causes and environmental organizations around the globe. And so doing a lot. We've been doing this now for almost 20 years. Next year will be our 20th.
So, are you optimistic?
I
mean,
actually am, yeah.
Why?
By talking to everybody on the ground. So
Yeah.
we set up at concerts. So we have right now our staff folded into many rock tours.
Name a couple big people you're working with, Adam.
Okay.
Oh, yeah?
Well, sure.
Do
So we
tell.
just finished the Billie Eilish World Tour. That was a big one.
Gosh.
Some good ones that we're doing right now.
Harry Styles.
Oh, Harry Styles.
You shouldn't have
Yeah.
won Best Album of the Year, but that's a whole.
That's a good album.
Fine. That's
I like
good
that.
album.
Opinion
It's
on
not-
everything.
Okay, whatever.
So pop stars like that, but then also some veteran groups like Bare Naked Ladies and Dead and Company and Dave Matthews
That's
Band
great.
and folks like that.
But
to-
this you know something about, yeah?
What?
Exactly.
I'm here. I'm ready to
This
go,
is
man.
really a
Whatever it
little
is.
frightening.
We'll do it live.
Yeah,
Put
let's
something
do
in
it
front of
live.
us.
We'll do it live.
That's what we'll do.
Okay, so do you want to introduce your bandmates before you do this first number here? You want to do that?
These guys over here?
These
That's
guys
Luke
over here.
Reynolds,
Who
who's
are
holding
these
the bass
people?
right now. That's Luke Reynolds on the bass.
Hey, Luke Reynolds, how are you? It's great to have you.
He's the new guy as of 14 years ago.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Okay, there are other ones.
Brian Rosenworcel is our drummer. I met him when I was 18.
We know that. Brian, it's great to see you again.
And
Thanks for
Dave
being
Butler,
here.
we rope into as many live things as possible. He's going to be rocking the melodica today at the Boston Public Library. Is that a first?
Yeah.
Melodica? Is
Yeah.
that what that thing is?
That's what it is.
That's a fabulous looking thing. Oh, you blow into like a piano or something, or
Yeah.
whatever it is.
I've
okay,
never
what are you
seen
playing?
that
You're
what,
great.
What are you playing?
We're going to play Satellite because we figured that's like a down the middle, easy,
Okay.
people know that
All
one.
right,
Okay,
we'll
and
play
then
that
you're
one.
coming back with Brian, I
Yeah,
think.
Brian.
Is that something like
he
that?
has a better memory than me.
Adam, it's great to see you, and
Thank
we
you.
can't wait to hear you play.
Nice to
We're about
see
to
you
hear
too.
Guster. And by the way, again, here's the deal. Tickets for tonight and tomorrow night are sold out at bso.org/pops, but we are told by one of their colleagues that single seats may be available. Check them out. Number 2, they're hosting their 5th annual 3-day On the Ocean Festival in Portland, Maine. You can Google that. And 3, announced literally like about 90 minutes ago, tickets go on sale June 12th for Guster playing at the fabulous Tanglewood for either the first or second time. They're not sure. Later this summer, you go to bso.org, and here they are, Guster.
Shining like a word of
Guster. Tonight and tomorrow night at the Boston Pops, Ryan is going to rejoin us along with Brian Rosenworcel, who's doing the drum thing. They're going to be back with us in a couple of seconds. And again, 2 nights at the Pops, then 3 days on the Ocean Festival in Portland, Maine, and Tanglewood later this summer. Tickets are on sale on June 12th.
So I was mentioning before that our executive producer over here, Jimmy Bologna, just went to his reunion at Tufts. And he wants to know, I didn't know Tufts were the Tufts Jumbos.
Jumbos, yes.
Why not Jumbos instead of Guster?
That's a fabulous question.
Oh, yeah. Why didn't we name our band after our college mascot?
Yes.
I mean, I don't know. It just didn't occur.
Why would it be too late now to change it?
I think it's kind of catchy, the Jumbos, don't you think?
Yeah. Where were you 33 years ago?
Exactly.
You know, Brian, if I remember correctly, small details stay with me. I hope I got this right. I think last time you were here, you were wearing a ripped T-shirt. Is that correct?
Most likely.
And you were talking about your mother calling you, I think, after you were on the Tonight Show, upset that you had a ripped T-shirt on the damn Tonight Show. Did I get that right?
Yeah, Dave Letterman, we played a song, and I had an armpit hole, and there was a close-up of me raising my hand to hit a cymbal.
That is disgusting.
And it exposed and she's never been the same since.
My son, I don't want to ask you this question. Maybe I'll ask Brian, because I know that you have memory issues, and I can relate to those.
Wow. This is like
just being honest.
It's a little bit stern right now. I like it. I like
you imbibe in certain substances for too long and too frequently. And
she would know about that. Believe me, she would.
Who am I and why am I here?
Exactly.
But in any case, I mean, I asked you guys this before, but it is kind of neat. I mean, you could work together. You know, you got to practice together. You got to critique each other. I mean, where's the staying power? It's hard to do what you have done.
Brian.
The good thing you didn't ask me. I'd be like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, you got Jesus on your T-shirt there. So he guides you to be forgiving and forgive each other.
It's a little bit of
help each other out.
It's a little bit of Jesus.
Well, that's good.
But mostly, we've just been having a blast for 30 years now. And if we weren't, we probably wouldn't be doing this. But we go on the road. We have a great time. We get a little break from our families, which is kind of critical.
Yeah.
We just, we keep the relationship strong. If you're communicating and your friendships are strong, you're going to want to make music together, and that's just how it's been.
I will say, that's a great answer, but I also will say, a lot of it, too, is just having people that continue to show up to support the band. You know, if we put up 2 pop shows and nobody came, I think, this might be our 13th or 14th orchestra symphony show that we've done since we started with the Pops. And I think word gets out and people show up and they want to sell tickets. I mean, really a part of it for us, I think, is the amazement that every time we can put up a Tanglewood or a Pops or do 3 days at a festival, that there could be 3, 4, 5,000 people that show up that still care about our music. So there's a lot of that where we feel like we have to take this very seriously to keep our music, to keep trying really hard to challenge ourselves and really honor our relationships and try and just make good stuff so they're not embarrassed to wear their Guster t-shirt.
I know, Brian, I know you guys are big all over the place, but this is Boston really feels like it owns you kind of. I mean, that's the feel, is it not? No?
Yeah, I mean, we started here. We spent 8 years living in Somerville in an apartment together. This is our
Really?
home. Yeah.
Oh. Okay, well...
Somerville has changed. Been to Somerville
I didn't
lately?
mean like I was uninterested. I am interested in that you were in the same apartment and whatever. Does
Yeah.
Ryan, do you remember that apartment, Ryan, or not?
What are you talking about?
Exactly,
Yeah.
right? What?
What's up, Joe?
I think
What are you saying, Brian?
it's impressive that you know everything about Nikki Haley's the town hall and everything, and then you have to come to Guster, and it's like you're expected to know that we spent 8 years in Somerville.
Exactly.
It's too much, Jim. It's just too much.
It is too much. Obviously, it's too much for Ryan. So, by the way, one more time, what's the name of that incredible instrument that David is playing over there?
Melodica.
That's great. Melodica.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'll get you one.
Well, so I
I've
don't
never
need it.
seen
Thanks.
that in my whole life.
Anything
That's
we can do.
Okay,
unusual.
fine. What are you playing? Because we're running out of time.
Oh, we're running out of time.
What are you playing?
Now we're going to play a brand new song.
Good.
Yeah, very, very brand new.
What's it called?
It's called Black Balloon. We have a record that's 99% done. We made some decisions today that moved it from 98% done to 99.
What's the song about?
Black Balloon. Oh, it's very depressing. It's
It
very
is?
sad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, it's not. We wrote it kind of like it was a COVID thing when we were writing and recording.
Okay.
The record's not a COVID record. Brian wants to make everybody sure it's not that.
Okay.
But there was a little bit of always struggling with the dance between pessimism and optimism and where you find yourself in that. I don't know. I haven't had to talk about this song.
Well,
yet.
you're doing it now. So it's called Black Balloon, and
Yeah.
you're going to play it just when you take your headphones off.
Now.
Now, yes. That's
Okay.
Ryan and Brian joining their colleagues in Guster. And again, we're going to tell you where all the upcoming shows are. Don't give up on the Pops, because I think that's going to be great. And if there's single tickets,
single seats,
try to
yeah.
grab them.
You
It's
can
sort
often
of
get
exciting.
single seats,
Here they
absolutely.
are with Black Balloon, which is going to be on the new album, was the point. Was that not the point? Okay. Oh, you are with the Pops. Yeah, okay. And here they are, second time, Guster.
Play this by myself? Yeah. Okay. Black balloon, you pull the air out of this room. I'm to no good, but I'm not frightened out of you. You're black balloon. Yeah. Sun and moon. I've been waiting for changes. It's what we're put here to do. Something is better than nothing. So I'll go. If you ask me to, we'll fly. I'm beside you, black balloon. Black balloon, I'm not scared of what you do, 'cause I made you. Were we ever understood? We black balloons. I'm not worried about changes. It's what we're put here to do. Someone is better than no one. So just ask me to, and I'll fall. We'll fly. We'll fly. I'm beside you, black balloon.
Guster, that was fabulous,
They're
guys.
playing tonight and tomorrow night with the Boston Pop
That was really
Symphony
great.
Hall.
Wow.
There are last few tickets for, they're sold out. We'd like to get